Namaste and greetings. I, Astaba Jadeja, visiting researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all at IMPRI #Web Policy Learning. Today we are gathered here for the inaugural day of the Beyond Binaries Cohort 2 program. This 1 month immersive online certificate training course will be a potent tool for engagement, persuasion, coalition building, and perception shaping within the LGBTQIA plus rights and equality. It will render complex issues pertinent to the community comprehensible and relatable, facilitating engagement among policymakers and broader public, an instrument in building coalition among diverse stakeholders, uniting queer individuals, allies, and advocacy groups behind a common cause, and to amplify collective voices and policy advocacy efforts. We welcome you to join us for an immersive journey that centers diverse queer narratives, mobilizes policymakers to challenge stereotypes and dismantle stigmas, and promote greater social acceptance and inclusion. The chair for the program is Professor Vibhuti Patel, visiting distinguished professor, IMPRI. Our expert panel for the program includes C. Moulee ji, Prince Manvinder Singh Gohil ji, Ragamalika Karthikeyan ji, Harish Iyer ji, Advocate Rohin Bhatt ji, Grace Banu ji, Raj Mariwala ji, Dr. Dhiren Borisa ji, Rituparna Bora ji, Dr. Debulina De ji, Rituparna Neog ji, Dr. Aksa Sheikh ji, Dr. Sohini Ghosh ji, Maya Avasti ji. The conveners for this course are Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Ms. Vitita Jha ji, and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. Proceeding further, we welcome everyone to this transformative journey and appreciate your dedication in investing your time, energy, and commitment to gaining a profound understanding of the crucial role and integrate details of queer inclusive policies rooted in equality, dignity, and justice principles. We have also shared course outline and reading resources in your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to state the housekeeping announcements. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your question in the Q&A box. The question should not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise and refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. To begin today's session, I would like to invite our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI, to give her opening remarks. We welcome you, ma'am, and over to you.
Thank you, Ashtaba, and good afternoon, all. First of all, I would like to congratulate Dr. Arjun Kumar, Dr. Simi Mehta, Ms. Vitita, Ms. Priyanka, and whole IMPRI team for putting this course together on this very important month, the Pride Month. And I welcome today's experts, resource persons, Moulee ji and Prince Raghavendra ji, Ragamalika ji, and esteemed participants. As we all know, that Pride Month is celebrated worldwide and in India in June. This year's theme is Reflect, Empower, Unite. In the 21st century, discourses around gender and sexuality have evolved beyond gender binaries, prompting a deeper exploration of diverse identities and experiences across gender spectrum. This paradigm shift has also brought center stage the conversations about gender fluidity, plurality of sexual orientations beyond heteronormativity, and intersections of gender identity with history, culture, politics, society. As we navigate this intricate terrain, we also start giving up rigid rules, customary practices, norms, prejudices, certain fixated notions, and embrace spectrum of human diversity, respect for plural ways of lifestyle, dress codes, personal choices. Understanding gender and sexuality as a fluid and multifaceted is not only crucial for building inclusivity and promoting gender justice, but it has a humbling and democratizing impact on us in our everyday lived reality and coexistence of people with diverse life worlds, as immediately or directly experienced in the subjectivity of everyday life. By acknowledging the diversity of experiences and identities, we can create a more inclusive and affirming environment for all individuals in all spheres: economy, polity, legislations, social practices, regardless of where they fall on the spectrum of gender and sexuality. Through public discourses in non-threatening environment, I once again emphasize non-threatening environment, dialogical approach and advocacy, we can work towards an inclusive world. With this perspective, cohort 2 of Beyond Binary starts today. We all know now there are, because of the so many new directives that have come by the Supreme Court, and in platitude, in terms of platitude, we are going beyond binary. But when it comes to day-to-day practice, right from giving admission to non-binary people in our institutions, or giving them employment, or giving them equal opportunity in the world of work, it still remains a distant dream. So it is very important to sort out this gap between the praxis and also the kind of the platitude that we have in our society and also in the world of work. Thank you very much. And now IMPRI team can take over.
Thank you, ma'am, for walking us through the introduction of this program. I am now delighted to invite C. Moulee ji, editor at Queer Chennai Chronicles, festival director and curator, Queer Lit Fest Chennai, diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist and consultant, who will walk us through the topic of the nuances of gender and sexuality, political dynamics in contemporary society. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone, and especially thank you for the IMPRI team for putting this together. And also, I think starting the Pride Month, kind of having this program to start with to talk about the nuances of queer persons and politics in India. I think this is a conversation that we have evolved over the years from the initial conversations that we have had in contemporary India around rights pertaining to gender and sexual minorities, to the matured conversation, or at least matured in today's aspect, is something, as a progress, is something that I see in the past 15 years, being an activist, being someone who is involved in policy making. This helps me to kind of understand that, you know, we are progressing when it comes to the rights, although this does not reflect the pace of speed that we want the changes to happen. This does, yeah, hi. Okay, sorry. So this does, I do see there's, okay, sorry, yeah. So this does kind of help us to move the needle forward when it comes to the rights. And also thank you all the attendees for taking time to attend these series of lectures. I think that's really encouraging to see a lot of persons. But also I would like you to post your questions, you know, in case if you have anything while I speak. At the same time, share your knowledge that you have. That's something that we would move ahead. So also, since my topic is going to be around gender and sexual minorities with politics, I would also like to kind of talk about, you know, when we talk about LGBTQIA communities or queer persons, we need to also understand, you know, like it is not a single monolith community that we are talking about. Even if we talk about India as a country, we have various states, various languages, but also we have a lot of other identities that we come along with. And when we come to politics, when we talk about politics, we do not talk about communities, we talk about constituents, we talk about constituencies. So I think it would be right to call LGBTQIA persons, instead of communities, referring them as constituents is very important, because we are not one single unit, right? Like we have different aspirations, different dreams, different political affiliations, different religious affiliations. So calling this group as a constituency would be more apt, especially for this session, because one, there is a sense of visible as well as an invisible aspect when we talk about gender and sexual minorities. But at the same time, when we talk about politics, we are also talking about assimilation of communities coming together, right? Like in a constituency, we have groups coming together. There is a number. When we talk about democracy, when we talk about voting, we talk about majority. And in this case, LGBTQIA persons or gender or sexual minorities, they exist everywhere. Like it is not one specific constituency we exist. It's not one specific geographical location that we come from. Rather, we are spread across. Like in case, even if I have to go granular, we are in each and every houses, right? So if there is 4 votes in a house, one of the vote or even 2 votes might be someone who is not heterosexual and or cisgendered persons. And so let me start with a simple question. We have participants here and even panelists. So when we are talking about contemporary politics and LGBTQIA persons, there is, for me personally, there is one defining moment in our contemporary Indian history or Indian political history, as well as the Indian queer movement, where we talk about politics, where politics and the queer movement came face to face at a point of time in the contemporary history. Like, could anyone talk about what this might be, or does anyone know what this could be? This is very important for us when we talk about politics and voting, but there is this one moment that happened recently. But then since I'm being very vague, can everyone share in the chat what is it that you see as a defining moment when it comes to LGBTQIA rights and politics in India? I would give maybe 2 minutes until 4:15. I will wait for any responses. No idea. Okay. A recent anything, marriage equality not recognized. That's fairly recent, yes. But then thank you for sharing. Anyone else? It could be according to you also, one defining moment or one important moment. TN draft policy, Raga, yes. Something that we are talking about.
I'm sorry, I'm bothering. Could you just explain the question a little more kindly? I've just joined.
So yes, go ahead. Like I was asking, like according to you, what would you talk about as a defining moment in the Indian contemporary LGBTQIA movement or politics, where queer rights and politics come face to face, or a defining moment?
Well, actually, I'd love to hear from my audience, my colleagues in the India, because I'm from Pakistan. I've joined, and I'm very eager to understand the whole concept and process. If you allow me to talk about my context, it is we still lacked way back comparing to India, and the kind of movement which is started there. Courses like these and platforms like these, this is still a dream here in my part of the world. So I'm very eager to know from our Indian friends what has been done so far.
Right. Thank you very much. So I see various answers on the chat. Thank you, everyone. I do see, some of them. But also, let me talk about, I think I would go back to 2003. There was this transgender woman in Madhya Pradesh who contested for the post of mayor. Her name is Kamala Jan. She contested for the post of mayor in the Khatri, city for the post of mayor in Madhya Pradesh. But the election tribunal, what they did was they cancelled her candidature because they said that particular seat is reserved for women. And the Madhya Pradesh High Court held that tribunal's result of disqualifying her, right? That would be one. And I think second one, the most defining that actually changed the course of Indian elections, I would say, is in 2004, when transgender activist Priya Babu filed a petition in the Madras High Court saying that the Election Commission should provide voters' ID to all transgender women in India. So because I think when voters' ID card is being issued to everyone, transgender persons were missed out. And I think that is a defining moment, is because every one of us are entitled to cast our vote in this country, and having that voters' ID is very much important. So I think that assimilation. Yeah, sorry. Yes, so I think assimilation, that kind of having that rights to exercise our, voting rights as a citizen of this country, of India, I think that is a defining moment. And, back then the conversation wasn't so public. We didn't have such vibrant queer communities or such vibrant talks around rights, right? It was more about nonprofits, outreach programs. There was this 377 case, which was already filed in the Delhi High Court. But talking about rights, talking about issuing voters' ID for transgender women at that point in 2004, I think that is an important moment for us, is because the queer community, or especially in this case, the transgender women community, was being recognized, right? And that was something that started. And if we see today in Indian election, we have a lot of transgender women, like we need to kind of see that percentage, a lot of transgender women contesting elections in different states of the country. And I think that is something we need to kind of recognize that. And also the next moment I would talk about is about issuing ration cards for transgender persons, right? Again, because this has a very specific relation in our country, is because usually ration cards are seen as family cards in our country, where it lists the family, the father, mother, children, and also, if it is a joint family, it is going to have a couple of generations. And this is very much important for transgender persons, is because, and even now it happens, is like they are disowned by their family, they are, on their own, and having an identity card, a government identity card, which is essential for us to be in this country to kind of avail services, let it be education, jobs, and various other things. I think having a family card was something, people need to understand that was very important for them to kind of obtain that ration card. It not only ensures that they are getting provisions, but also recognizing as a single person, or as someone that they are considered as a family in the society. And I think that comes to like almost 20 years now, at least I would say almost 18 years now. We are talking about, at least in Tamil Nadu, we are talking about same gender couples. We know marriage among same gender couples is not legal in India yet. But also there are other ways that same gender couples cohabit in our country. But also there is a kind of conversation happening, is that this ration card or family card must be extended to same gender couples, even if they are not legally married, to consider them as a family. I think that kind of changes the way how we see gender and sexuality. The lack of state recognition to kind of availing certain services through the government schemes is very much important for us to go that way. So I think that voters' ID is something I would always state that is an important aspect for us to move ahead with. And the second aspect I would talk about is, how the queer communities, right? Like when I said constituencies, is spread across states. There are different moments where the country communities which came together to fight, like 377, the NALSA verdict, which came in 2014 by the Supreme Court. And then when there was opposition from the trans community for the Transgender Act to make it more inclusive and reflect the transgender person's voices. And also recently the marriage equality cases, right? Like these are some key moments the community across the country that came across. But also we need to understand, India being a diverse country, having different political fragmentation in different states. The needs of people in different states are very different. The election needs, especially when we talk about state elections, the needs and the conversations in each states are very different. And queer persons in each of these states, in each of their cities and towns, perfectly engage with the political parties locally. And this is something we do not often see in the national media, is because we are always looking at that one thread, that one news item, which kind of links all of us as Indians as fighting for one single cause. But let us talk about Kamala Jan, who fought for her right to contest the mayor election in her town, right? That conversation happened in Madhya Pradesh, but that is a defining moment, even though that was very much limited to one town, one person. But then that is one of the known times we know where a transgender person wanted to contest an election as a woman, as a constituency reserved for women, and she was denied. And then we have trans persons fighting for voters' IDs. So these are various moments we need to understand. It is not just, the very much known conversations are important for us, but also that happens in our towns, in our wards, in our, villages and states are very much important for us to talk about. And coming back to that, I would talk, the next one is the private member bill by DMK MP Tiruchi Shiva, which he presented in 2014, which talks about trans persons' rights. And then, we had the NALSA verdict and then various conversation. And today we have the Transgender Persons Act, right? So this engagement, we need to talk about how an MP from a mainstream political party in the southern state of Tamil Nadu proposed a private member's bill to extend rights to transgender persons in our country. Now, did this happen by magic? Did this happen, solely by the MP to present it? No, there was a conversation that happened. There was, an engagement from the community with the MP to talk on behalf of them. And that's what we need to understand, like our political representatives or representatives of us, the people. And that's also important for us to elect people, politicians who reflect us, who listen to their communities, who listen to their constituents, to talk for our rights in the policy making spaces. And that is how we talk about that bill. But also fast forward in 2020, if I'm not wrong, we had two MPs who presented private member bills in the parliament, right? Like we had two MPs. One is from, again, DMK, Dr. Sendil Kumar, who talked about broader LGBTQIA rights. And also we have from Maharashtra, Ms. Supriya Sule from the NCP, who again, where she talked about LGBTQIA persons' rights. Now we need to see this 6 years or, the contemporary political or the queer movement we need to see is because the visibility has moved on beyond one single identity, right? Like today we are talking about LGBTQIA persons, and we are talking about the larger queer community. So we are talking about gender and sexual minorities. And when we say, queer persons or gender and sexual minorities, the whole assumption is always that we are talking about LGBTQIA persons or persons who are not cisgender and or not heterosexual, right? So it is expanding. The conversation is moving away from what it used to be. So, and that is also something we are noticing in this thing is like, again, there has been a certain kind of engagement with the representatives who are, of course, our representatives who share the people's wishes, which we see as the private member bill, right? Although we do know the limitations of these private member bills, it rarely takes a form of law, right? Like it is rarely enacted as something, concrete. This symbolic positions of, MPs presenting private member bills for a constituency that is not numerically, that does not have numeric voting value, right? And that is also something we need to understand is that although we say 10 to 15% persons might be in any given population is LGBTQIA identified, this does not sit in one single constituency or one single geographic region to determine a person's victory or loss in elections. So how does that happens for us when we talk about political movements or bringing the political changes? And this is where I think we need to talk about judiciary. And rightly this, the speakers in this month's session, I think we do have sessions that talks about judiciary and other aspects. And all these aspects, except the private member bill that we are talking about, any other changes that has happened through politics has always had the support of the judiciary of our country, right? Like there has been some sort of judgment that was given for that action to take place. So it has never happened on its own in a silo, but rather there has always been judiciary intervention to have these changes. And the fair example for us is like amending section 377, which says consensual sex between consenting adults is not criminal. So that aspect of where, like people lobbying or people doing advocacy work, especially with our politicians, with the help of judiciary system, I think that change does happen. But we also need to kind of look at, as a country, we have had a lot of movements around the country, right? From the independence movement to until today. Has there been any meaningful expression of extending rights from our political parties for queer persons is a big question that is always there among everybody. So let us see, like the elections are going on. So we are going to have, the elections are over. Day after tomorrow, we will have the verdict, right? And let me ask you, how many political parties actually included queer rights in their manifesto in this election? Anybody? It's fairly recent, right? Like how many political parties included queer rights in their manifesto, if we are talking about politics and election? Yes. CPI and INC, yes. SPI. INC, yes. Yeah, so let us also remember CPI has for a while included LGBTQ rights in their manifesto, right? At varying degrees, they have included. INC, I think like even BJP has included, but it has included from a sense of welfare, more funds to be allocated for shelter, but nothing about rights. And even the important thing when we talk about Indian National Congress manifesto is that it talks about marriage equality, but also the key thing that we need to note is that it would have consultation with the larger Indian population. And that is the key point for me. Yes, there is a piece in the manifesto, but also it talks about getting the opinion of the larger population. Now that is problematic for us is because that's washing away the responsibility, saying it's not saying that we would bring in marriage equality if we come to power, but rather it says that we would seek the opinion of the people if we have to bring in marriage equality, right? I would leave it up on to you all to think what that means. It's not a commitment, rather it is just the first step that we would initiate the conversation. So I think like that is very minimalistic when we talk about queer rights. But also why it is important when we talk about marriage equality for same-gendered persons in our country is because a lot of rights, a lot of welfares and a lot of things in our countries are dependent on relationships, right? Either blood relationship or legal relationship. But as adult lesbian, gay persons who are living in, with their respective partners, we miss out on a lot of government schemes, as basic as tax saving as a family, right? So a lot of things are tied back to this legal relationship that we talk about. So I think it is important that we talk about rights, not just because it's the right thing for us to do, because a lot of laws and policies in this country kind of goes back to the relationship that we have with the persons that we live. And that is very much important. And even if we are talking about a simple insurance policy, right? Now, if a person is living with their same gendered partner, they can only get 2 individual insurances. It's never possible for them to get it as a family, right? If you want to form a family unit, then again, our adoption laws does not allow queer persons to adopt children, but it allows single men and women to adopt children. But again, like if you are a queer person, you want to adopt, you have to conceal the fact that you are a queer person to go ahead with the adoption process. So there is a lot of complexity that is involved, is that because when we talk about simple rights, we think that these are individual problems that we are talking about, but that as a society, there is a lot of marginalization that happens. And for this change for us to happen, I think that political lobbying is very much important for us to talk about, engaging with our representatives, engaging with our local political movements. It's not just the electoral political parties that we have to talk about, but also we need to talk about social movements that exists in our country. And I think one of the examples I would again point out when we are talking about social movements and queer rights is that I would talk about the Dravidian movement, the Dravida Karagam, which is almost a century now. This was formed in the 1920s in Tamil Nadu. At the time, we did not have Tamil Nadu, we had Madras Presidency. So it started in the south. And like they spoke about rights, like it was primarily talking about self-respect movement, talking about casteism, religious hegemony, and a lot of things, that whatever happened, we can attribute to this self-respect movement. But only in 2018, this Dravida Karagam, which spoke about a lot of, people's rights in this state, especially even if we are going to talk about, the Special Marriage Act, that kind of has roots in the self-respect marriage, where two individuals in India, until then, you have to have a religious ceremony to get married. And even to register, you need to have a religious ceremony. But then self-respect marriage kind of went beyond it and said, like, you just need a commitment. You do not need to have a religious ceremony to, have that marriage registered. And that's how we have that included now under Special Marriage Act. Is like, even if you are marrying another person without any cultural or a religious ceremony, that marriage is valid and it could be registered, right? And so when it has all these things, in 2018, in the manifesto, when this social movement, which has existed for almost a century, it was only 6 years ago, they said, they spoke about, or they included that marriage equality must be, there for everyone in this country. It spoke about trans persons' rights has to be implemented. So we are talking about movements that spoke for the people, that brought in social revolution, talking about queer persons' rights in their manifesto is a success. I think that's a victory for the queer community in the state and at large for all the Indian movement, is because we have made a century-old social movement to talk about queer rights. I think that is the same thing I would talk about the CPI manifesto, because they have done for at least the past 2 or 3 elections, they have included queer persons' rights. So having that included in their manifestos, in their conversations is very important. But I think I will move to my last point. As much as it is important and happy to see them recognize and have our rights spoken up in their manifestos, we need to talk about representation of queer persons in these political parties, right? Do we have a visible queer person in our political scenario today? Do we have someone, can we have someone who is openly gay or lesbian to be a minister or MLA to win an election in this country, right? And that is where the problem that happens is that we are having this conversation. We are having, politicians who are willing to talk about rights of queer persons, but at the same time, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to representation, there is a lagging that happens rightly. And yes, Devika, like Tamil Nadu was the first state to establish Transgender Welfare Board, especially that happened in 2008. But after like Kalaignar Karunanidhi, he said like, and yes, in 2007 or 8, that election also had a manifest. The DMK had a line about welfare of transgender persons at that point. So there has been welfare, there has been implementation that has happened, but we need to talk about representation, right? But I think we do have some baby success in that when we are talking about representation. We do have, like from 2003, where Kamala Jan was refused to contest the mayor election as a transgender person, to now today we have transgender persons openly contesting elections in various states. And we have also seen them winning these elections. And I think, again, from 2003 to 2024, it's been 20 years, 2 decades. But then I think for the past decade, like even from 2014 or 2011, 12, we do have this, trans persons contesting election in our country. And that is very important for us to see, is that it's not just we are talking about welfare schemes for queer persons or trans persons specifically. We are not talking about, something that needs to be done to kind of, am I audible? Sorry, I got.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, okay, yeah. So, but then
Yes,
we are
you
also
are.
talking, yeah. But also we are talking about queer persons, persons from gender and sexual minorities taking things into their hand. If we do not have a willing government to enact laws in favor of us, we think we need to contest elections and go sit in those places and have those things, have those conversations started. And I think that is the next logical step where we are talking about, right? And as times change, as we are talking about a larger, change in the movement, we see queer persons being assertive, taking things into our own hand to bring in the change. But also now we are moving beyond marriage equality, right? We are talking about ration cards for same gender couples. We are talking about sexual and gender minority commissions, especially in Tamil Nadu again. We are talking about gender and sexual minorities commission to be implemented to talk about rights of LGBTQIA persons in the state. So I think this change has been happening slowly, but also I think even though it appears slow in our lifetime, but then I think in the recent 20 years, there has been massive shift in the way we are talking about, right? And recently this week, a couple of days ago, Madras High Court actually gave a verdict saying that there has to be, separate reservation for transgender persons when it comes to education and employment. So I think as much as it is slow, it's also happening in a frequent way that we see these changes, little changes happening that brings about a lot of change in our lives. And with this, I would kind of pause here. And so because I think my time is until 4:40. So any questions if you all have, or any other things, yeah, please do share.
The question is not totally about any political or social movement. This is more about sex reassignment surgery. Will you be able to answer questions regarding that? Because I've worked on a research paper where there was a construct that I developed. It's called wrong body notion. So is it that they feel that they are in the wrong body, or it is a social construction that they are inside the wrong body? Because they feel feminine and they change their appearance with the sexual reassignment surgery. But what I'm asking is, feeling something should that be reflected on the appearance also? I'm not sure about this, because there were various views regarding that. And one view was that it was a big political agenda of a few European, or I don't know, Western surgeons who made this as a wrong body notion. So could you shed some light on that?
Thank you, Devika. I don't think I'm the right person to talk on the topic, but also I think when we talk about gender dysphoria, I think gender dysphoria is, like we can go around the conversation of is gender a social construct? Again, I think I may not be the right person for that. But also gender dysphoria is something that exists among trans persons. But also just to, I think, to provide a little bit of information, whether that's right or wrong, I think like even the term sex reassignment surgery we have moved away from that to called gender affirmation procedures. And that is being called now as gender affirmation procedure is because it's not just a surgery that is required for someone to, to identify as their true selves, but also there are various procedures. And this procedure includes changing their gender or personal demographic details in their identity cards in their school mark sheets. So it's always a process we talk about, but I think there might be experts on these topics who could provide you more information. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, sir.
Before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji for the chair's remark. Meanwhile, the participants can post their questions in the Q&A box.
Thank you, Moulee ji, for very important concerns that you raised is a political representation and voice. Just last year in April, on April 1st, PUCL and the network of LGBTQIA movement, their network is LBI Women and Trans Person. They released a report, Our Own Hurts Us the Most, which is centering around familial violence in the lives of queer and trans person. It's a very, very painful to even read that. So you can imagine what must be going on. So what can be the legal instruments to prevent family? The DV Act won't cover it. The Domestic Violence Act may not even accept this as a. So what can be done legally? One thing to consciousness raising, awareness generation in the community, parents, that is there. But still violence is happening in a big way, even among the highly educated and irrespective of the class background, the family violence on the LGBTQIA community is very, very high.
Yes, I think like when we talk about minors, right, like especially persons who are below 18, I would go with the term gender non-conforming at that point, because I think it's a person who need to identify themselves, right? So if a teenage person or if a child who do not conform to the society's notion of their expression, as well as like if their romantic inclination is towards of same gender, right? So if that is happening, I think people need to kind of, we need to see like, yes, one is awareness in the family, but I think there has to be separate laws to deal with this is because currently we use the existing laws that does not actually look that, a person's gender or sexual orientation might be the reason for the violence that they face, right? Because we are in denial that the natal family will not be perpetuating violence, but then research and studies shows otherwise. So there has to be a separate law where it has to look into, especially for gender non-conforming persons. And I think Juvenile Justice Board in many of the states are being queer inclusive now. They are looking into the ways that, like if a person's gender non-conformity is a factor for them for the violence that they go through.
Thank you.
There are raised hands. Vibhuti ma'am, should we go ahead with us?
Yeah, Madam Amita Bucci.
Amita ji, could you please unmute and ask your question if it's possible? Meanwhile, Shreya Pandey ji, could you please unmute and ask your question if possible?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm a student of political science. Actually, I teach political science. My question to you is that forgive me for my ignorance, but are there really very strong, sturdy groups from the LGBTQIA community who are really putting forth their demands in concrete terms to these political parties? That is what I'd like to know, because lobbying interest groups, they definitely can assert themselves. So do we really have a group which is visible in are they scattered, or is there a consolidated group? I'd like you to inform me about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreya. I think there are individuals and groups in various states, right? Like at least I know there has been three, not just groups, like there are two individuals and groups that has provided or created manifesto in the southern states. And these manifestos have been handed over to their political parties in their states. But also, as we need to understand, right? Like queer persons are everyone, right? Like we are in every homes, and how much of us actively uh, engage in political or politics in our households, right? And so that is the reason I think, to my knowledge, there isn't a consolidated political group or collective that exists in India to talk about these rights. Although there are groups that talk about legal rights, medical rights, and all those things, where doctors come together, where lawyers come together who are queer persons and talk about rights, right? Queer academics come together and talk about these rights. I don't see queer persons who are in politics who come together and talk about, let's see what changes can be made. But although I would talk about, we do have in Congress has a professional body for LGBTQIA persons, where it is led by queer persons, where these queer persons bring awareness around queer rights in the Congress political party, right? And that is why I think it was a surprising thing, is because Congress is the one of the political parties that has a separate body for LGBTQIA persons, but also the Congress government in Rajasthan issued something, like very homophobic when it came to especially marriage equality. It was that one government from Rajasthan which said that it is not possible, right? And that is the disconnect that we are talking about. Few politicians who are interested in queer rights versus the larger political party in this diverse country, which do not match each other. So for your answer, I do not have a direct, for your question, I do not have a direct answer, but there is a sort of scattered around conversations where queer persons are trying to engage with political parties, and there are few groups in few states.
Thank you for your answer. So, Amitaji has posted a question in the Q&A box. Would you want me to read it out?
Yes, please.
I would, yes.
Amitaji, try to unmute. Amitaji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good evening.
Yeah, hi, good evening.
Am I audible? Yes.
Yes, yes.
So actually, if I can add a few sentences to my question, I have been a journalist, and we have done many articles on queer people, etc. But I was looking at them as, like very faddish kind of attitude or approach, some young people. But I have an incident in my family now, and the whole family is terribly startled. So I am getting into, that is why I have registered for this webinar. I am still not clear about the phenomenon, that whether it is biological, is it physiological, is it genetic, or is it a fad or a construct of an individual, that now I want to be a male, a female, whatever. I'm really, really bogged down by this question, and I need to find answer for this.
Thank you, Amita, for asking the question. But again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not an expert on this. I can talk about LGBTQIA persons' inclusion in workplaces and policies and other things. But I think if you ask me, I think every human being need to have their rights, right? And kind of seeing the medical reasons behind a child in our home, to accept them or not. I think like we need to kind of provide them safety, like education, shelter, roof, and I think everything has to be provided. But I do understand, I think a right person for this is someone who probably is a, experienced in the psychological field for this to talk about. And this is something, but if you ask me, I think as family members, I wouldn't be pondering what is the reason, like if my child is writing in a left hand, I would just encourage if they are writing. So that is where I would go ahead with. Sorry, I don't have the answer for you. We'll go to the next question. Yeah.
Swati ji, could you please unmute, if you could unmute and ask your question? Swati Priyaji.
Swati Gupta.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think Shreya ji has also raised hand. Shreya Pandey.
Yes. Why don't Astha, why don't you read the questions?
Yeah, Swati Priyaji has asked two questions. The first is, how is DEI policy received in India, especially in educational institutions and mid-sized companies, organizations? The second question is also because when talking about their representation in policy, its outcome is also going to be their representation in education and profession. Are academics open to this inclusivity? uh, yeah, they have also introduced themselves as a professor of psychology, and they cannot answer if you could take.
Yes, thank you very much. For Ms. Swati's question, I think I will talk about is DEI policy. I think it's we are still in nascent stage, right? Like we are in the initial stages. And we need to understand when we talk about DEI, it is not just LGBTQIA persons. We talk about women, cisgender, heterosexual women. We talk about queer persons. We talk about persons with disabilities. We talk about persons with neurodivergency and generational, right? Like, because we do know, like when we are talking about inclusion, recent times, we do have people who are above 40 or 45 being passed on for new roles or when it comes to technology. So we talk about various policies and processes that includes people in the employment pool, but not excludes it. But also we need to talk about those things in an intersectional manner, right? Say, for example, a 45-year-old gay person, if they are not able to find a job, is it because they are gay or is it because they are above 45? Or if this person is gay or because they are a disabled person, right? There's a lot of things we need to talk about, but it's very much in a starting phase is where we are at. The conversation needs to evolve and mature for that. And the next thing about representation that you spoke about in policy making, I think we need to have representation in every aspect, like not just if we are talking about so one of the examples I will give is like I am one of the policy drafting member for the Tamil Nadu LGBTQIA policy. And out of the 11 persons in this drafting committee, 8 of us are queer identified persons. And when we talk about 8 of them are queer identified persons, all 8 of us have different gender identities or different sexual orientations, right? And that is the kind of representation I think we need to have in every policies. Like even if we are talking about an education policy, I think we need to not just have queer representation in those things, but also we need to have representation from other marginalized and minority communities, because there are specific reasons, where someone might be missing out on their education because of their community that they belong to. But I would also kind of talk about this on a larger aspect, maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now. We should not just expect a queer persons to talk about queer rights, right? If this person might be a queer person, but then their expertise might be, in a field in climate change, right? But what this person would bring in is that their knowledge about how climate change impacts queer persons. But everyone must have that. Say, for example, we just have a 2-person committee that is going to talk about, if a climate change in our country. Now, this 2-person is not going to have the expertise or lived experiences of everyone. But how are we going to have this 2-person committee have that perspective of this diverse population of our country? Is that we talk about this, we normalize when we are, talking about policies, when we are doing studies, we need to normalize and we need to bring in perspective of all the communities, especially the marginalized communities, taken into account. And I think that is how we need to move ahead. And when we are talking about this 2-person committee that's talking about climate change, now I don't mind if that person is a gay person or a woman or a person with disability. I would look at their skills, right? And right now we are talking about more representation is because we are underrepresented. So we need to kind of have that representation in every aspect. And especially since we are talking about lack of rights, there is no rights at this point of time. Whenever we are framing a policy, when we are talking about new law that has to be implemented, we need to have queer representation in those spaces, predominantly queer representation, because that is going to bring in the right policy that we are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. There's another question by Anupriya ji. They're asking what can be some of the solutions for the issue of political representation of the LGBTQIA plus community, as even if they are contesting elections, the social stigma still pulls them down.
Yeah, thank you for this. Is a very important question because I think, like I mentioned earlier, queer constituency is not specific to one geographical location. So I cannot, like queer persons cannot get together and kind of make one person win or lose an election. That is not possible for us. But also, I would say at this point of time, everyone, like need to politically engage how much ever they are able to do things. And political parties should come out and look at their candidates, look at their party people's skills, like how they are contributing to their causes, irrespective of their gender identity and sexual orientation. And if we are talking about representation, even women's representation in our political party is not at a great point in India, right? But when it comes to queer persons, I think political representation for me, I strongly believe we do have nominated MP and MLAs in each state for minority communities which are scattered and which do not have that number specifically, right? For example, there is a nominated position for Anglo-Indians in some of the states. I believe some of the Indian states should kind of look into, like for queer persons, should we have such political representation in our country to have that fair representation? I think that is something already exists for some communities, and we need to see like if this is a right route for us to have that right political representation through nomination directly to the positions.
Thank you for that answer. Manisha ji, if you could go ahead with your question. Manisha ji, ma'am, in the view of time, should we move to the next session?
Yes.
We can take the questions after the next session.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, C. Moulee ji, for your engaging talk with us. We hope to see you in further IMPRI events as well. Moving on to the next session, I'm honored to invite Prince Manvinder Singh Gohil ji, Chairperson at Lakshya Trust. They will guide us through the topic of reigning authenticity, embracing identity in royalty. We welcome you. You can take the over from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here and giving me this opportunity. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, thanks for the introduction. Now, how many minutes do I have?
You have 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So, basically, my birth has been in a royal family, and I also happen to be the first member of a royal family to have openly come out as gay to the world. And I also didn't realize that when I made this breaking news, but later on I came to know that even in the world there was nobody from a royal family who had taken this step. So I'm quite proud of that. I'm proud of being gay. But having said that, I want to talk about some issues being raised in a royal family. So, I mean, it's, of course, now we live in a democratic republic, so there's nothing, different than that. But there are certain things which are still different in our families, our upbringing, protocols, and things which make us different than growing as a person not from a royal family. One of the important things I want to highlight is that unlike most families I've known or I've seen, there is a tremendous amount of attachment seen with children, of children and the parents of any families I've seen. I mean, you're conditioned to be attached to your parents, and that makes it very difficult for most of us to come out to them. because we always fear that we will be disowned, we will be, not accepted by the families, by the parents, because they don't understand our issues. So, it will be difficult for them to accept us. But in royal families, fortunately or unfortunately, that's not the case. We are not attached to our parents. On the contrary, we are raised by uh, a governess, someone who's a paid employee of the royal family and not raised by the parents. So that makes it a little, I would say, easier. It was easier for me to come out to my parents because I had no attachment to them. I still am not attached to them as such. So uh, most of the time, the parents, they know that their children are mentally conditioned to being attached to them, and they take that as an advantage, and they start emotionally blackmailing the queer children, and that makes it tremendously difficult for the queer to kind of to take any step to be independent, because I remember I do a lot of counseling, and sometimes a lot of members of the community come to me and they tell me that I have come out to my mother and she's not ready to accept me. She's saying, okay, so what if you're gay? You can still get married to a girl and you will become normal and things like that. And then the boy says, no, no, mom, that's not possible. I have no attraction towards the girl. I don't think it will be a successful marriage. And then the mother is insisting. She said, no, nothing doing. If you are not going to get married to the girl of my choice, I'm going to jump in the well and commit suicide. And then the boy is helpless. He says, I cannot allow my mother to do that. And then he says, okay, mom, I'm ready for the marriage. So that's that's how we get succumbed to marriage pressures, and because the parents take advantage of this fact that you cannot live. I mean, a lot of us can't live without the mother's food. Simple as that. I mean, when we get thrown out from homes, the first thing they miss is the mother's food, mother's meals prepared by the parents. So that was one difference I would like to state, which made me different than others. Another thing I would like to talk about is the homosocial behavior which we see in our society. And if I talk about giving you example from the royal family, you go to any palace in India, most of the palaces in India, they have separate sections for men and separate sections for women. In the our own palace in Rajpipla, where I belong to, we have a section just for the men. There's a section just for the women. So what ultimately is happening? We are promoting homosocial behavior. What is homosocial behavior? That men are allowed to be with men. That's absolutely normal, and women are allowed to be with women, and that's absolutely normal. But men are not allowed to be with women, and vice versa. That's not normal. So so I grew up in that atmosphere with men, and I was very happy with that situation. That wow, I mean, I'm allowed to be with men because I mean I'm born gay, so I had the sexual attraction towards men. So I was extremely happy in that situation that I've been given the freedom to be with men, and and I kind of I didn't. It's not that I hated women or hated girls, but I wasn't comfortable sexually with women. So this homosocial behavior in India is very interesting, because even when you go in public, you see men and men together, women and women together, and people have no problem with that. It's when the man and the woman come together, then that's seen as a problem. A lot of Westerners, when they come to India, they don't understand the situation. They think that why is our country so against homosexuality when there are so many men and men together and women together, and then we have to explain to them that it's not about the sexual orientation or the sexuality. It is the homosocial behavior in India, which you see in public, where our country, even though it's conservative and it's whatever it is, but it doesn't allow the opposite sex to be together as much as the Western world does. So that's something which I wanted to point out. Another thing which happens, which had happened to me when I was growing up was that because of the number of protocols, restrictions were put on me as a child, as growing up, that I was not allowed to kind of explore the outside world. So there was no chance of me even knowing about what's homosexuality, what's it to be gay, what's it to be lesbian. And very interestingly, uh, you know, if I talk about royal families, then there are a lot of uh, LGBT members within the royal circle itself. It's just that they are all in the royal closet. They're not. We don't speak about it. We don't talk about these issues. I was the only one which broke the barriers and came out of it. But I've heard this from my own parents' mouths, talking about following Maharaja who's gay, or following princess who's lesbian, and not knowing what is the word gay and what is the word lesbian mean. When I looked up the dictionary, I saw the word lesbian. There was no word like lesbian in the dictionary in those days. And then I looked up the word gay. Then I said, oh, gay means happy. So I don't see why they have an issue of somebody being gay, because for me, gay was happy. I remember in school, we had a poem which was something like this: work while you work and play while you play. That's the way to be happy and gay. So, I mean, when the word gay would come, it would be all hushed up, that no, you cannot speak that word. And I was thinking to myself, I mean, why have people have problem with this word gay, Why don't people like this word gay? Because for me, gay meant happy. So there should not be any problem with that. But yeah, that was the case. And when I came out to my parents, ultimately they were actually shocked. They were not even ready to believe the fact that it's true. And in fact, I came out in a hospital when I suffered a nervous breakdown, and the mental practitioner who was treating me, the psychiatrist, he was extremely sensitive to this issue, and he said, "There's nothing wrong. If you're gay, then there's absolutely no problem." But I said, "Look, my parents are not aware of it, so I would suggest you talk to them and explain to them about the situation." And when he told my parents, they said, "No, it's not possible. You're lying. It's absolutely not possible that our son is gay." And then the doctor asked them, "Why do you think so?" Then they said that, "Well, we have given him such good sanskar." There is a word in Hindi called sanskar. Sanskar means upbringing, that he possibly could not be gay, and which is a fact. I mean, I did get a very good upbringing. I mean, the best upbringing I could have got, compared to others. But there is no relation with upbringing to being gay or straight. Secondly, they said he had so many girlfriends in school. So there was no possibility that I could be gay. And that's also a fact. I studied in a co-ed school in Mumbai. I had a lot of girlfriends. I had a lot of girlfriends from Bollywood, in fact. But they did not understand that having girlfriend and having a sexual attraction with the girls was something different. And the third thing, they said that he was not gay, but it was persons like Ashok Rao Kavi, who happens to be India's first gay activist. He took advantage of my situation, and he has converted me. He made me gay. So that those are the things which they brought about, and then they were not ready to accept me, and then they went on doing a lot of things. They tried to convert me. They went through medical conversion. They went to religious conversion, and they wasted my time for nothing. But ultimately, they never succeeded in anything, because I could not be converted. It's not something which you can say, "Oh, okay, you take this pill or you do this therapy and you can become straight." That wasn't possible. So I very patiently, I kind of allowed them to try out anything they wanted to on me, and they were not successful. And it is because of this reason that they wasted so much of time. See, I had no attraction towards them, so attachment towards them, so I had nothing to lose. But they wasted my time, my energy, and everything for 3 years to convert me. And nothing happened. And then I realized, I said, this is enough. I mean, for no fault of mine, there's no reason for them to kind of torture me, harass me, and do things with me like that. And then that's the reason I took this step. I said, now enough is enough. Now I'm going to tell the whole world who I am. And that will be the last thing, we would like to do. And that's why on 14th of March, 20, I don't remember, 2006, sorry, 2006 to on 14th March, I took this bold step and I just gave my interview in the newspaper, and yes, the rest is history. So that's how this happened. And of course, they were totally shocked that I would take this decision. My effigies were burnt in the fire. The whole town protested because royal families are still worshipped. My family, my great grandfather, my ancestors have done a lot towards the development of our town. We have a statue of my great grandfather where he's treated like a god, still worshipped a lot. And imagine their own prince coming out. There was riots in the city. There were 5,000 people on the street. The police had to be called to quell the riots. My parents, they took out public notices in the newspapers and disowned me from the royal family, disinherited me from the ancestral property. And I said, fine, I mean, let them do what they want to do. When the newspaper, the media asked me that, weren't you, upset that they disowned you? I said, first of all, they never owned me. So there's no question of them disowning me. If you own something, then you can disown. But when you don't own, then how can you disown something? So that was one thing. I started getting death threats. And why? Because when I gave the interview in the newspaper, I said, I may be the first member of the royal family to come out openly as gay, but not the only one. So there were several royal family members who are gay, and I knew about them, and they were intimidated. They thought, now this guy has, become shameless, and he's outed himself. Now the time will come when he's going to out all of us. And I had no reason for outing anyone. Why should I out anyone? That's their life. If they don't want to come out of the closet, that's their problem. But then they were scared, and they started instigating my parents. They instigated a lot of other people. And they said, if this guy is not keeping quiet, what is the best way? Kill him. And then again, in royal families, killing is very easy. You just kill someone and you don't even come to know. There's so many royal conspiracies are there. This can be an accident. You can be just poisoned. You could be, thrown over the cliff, and they will not even come to know how the person has died. And I said, doesn't matter. I mean, I said, I don't mind sacrificing my life, if it is for a cause. My death, this movement is not going to stop. On the contrary, it will grow even stronger. So I don't care if they kill me, they take my life. But I'm still alive, so nothing happened. So I think I fought for myself. I fought for the rights. I fought for the LGBT community, and here I am in front of all of you talking, and I'm enjoying my life. I'm enjoying my freedom. My father, he kind of turned a lot. He donated me 15 acres of a royal establishment where I'm making India's first LGBT community campus on that property. And also he inaugurated, or rather laid the foundation stone of the campus as well. So it takes time for even parents or anyone to realize that, that we are not wrong. We have not done anything wrong by, declaring ourselves or being gay. And through education, through awareness, you can change a homophobic person into becoming an ally. And I always give this example. I said, if he can, when he disinherited me and disowned me from the family, still he has given me this ancestral property. It's a beautiful property. You all are welcome to come and visit whenever you get a chance to come to Gujarat. I'm making this ashram. I call it ashram in Hindi because many people don't understand what is a campus. It's a beautiful property, 15 acres on the bank of river Narmada, which is India's third largest river. And I'm making this beautiful space for the community so that they can enjoy their freedom and live the life the way they want to live. So yes, that's something about what I wanted to share. I'm open to questions.
Uh, Thank you for such an inspiring and engaging talk. I would like to invite Vibhuti ma'am for the chair's remark. Meanwhile, the participants can put their question in the Q&A box.
Yeah, thank you, Prince Manvinder, Gohil Singh ji. Very moving account you gave, and that too in such an objective manner, where in the midst of so many volatile roller coaster ride that you had. But we are more interested in knowing that how did you establish such a powerful institution? You have filed so many public interest litigations against conversion therapy and the whole new movement for legitimization of LGBTQIA community that you have done. You have also come up with the shelter home, which is supposed to be the best in terms of, say, Garima Group, what government says, Garima Group. So you have also created such safe spaces for people who have been rejected and disowned and tortured and tormented by their own families. So that process we would like to know. What were the support system for you to rebuild the life? No.
Yeah, I can talk to you about that. I would first like to say is that God has been kind to me, first of all, putting me in touch with so many wonderful people. See, I think when you do some work for a good cause, when you sacrifice and do something good, then you do get help also. You do make connections, you do get good networks. And that's exactly happened with me. I mean, I just found people who very similar to, my life, my principles, who just came into my life, and we started working together. And that's how 24 years back we started an organization called Lakshya Trust. 4 friends of us who had not even known each other. We just got together through a pen pal magazine. A pen pal magazine was there in those days. It was called Bombay Dost. It's still there. Bombay Dost is the oldest gay magazine in India. Through that, we 4 of us met, and we somehow about our chemistry matched, and we came together, and we 4 of us, we started Lakshya, which is the first organization in the state of Gujarat to start working for the LGBT population. And then again, as I said, God has been kind to me. The first project we get for Lakshya is by the government of Gujarat. We were not even registered, and the Gujarat government, they offered us that we would like to partner with you. And it's been 23 years that we have been working for the Gujarat government, exclusively for the men having sex with men, MSM, and the transgender community, for the cities of Baroda, Surat, and Rajkot. We are the largest organization in Western India working for the government. And the government is also extremely proud of us, because I have a dedicated team of workers. The people who are working for me, the people who are part of my staff, my board, they're extremely dedicated and committed people. They belong to the community, and they know that they need to put their sweat and blood for seeing that Lakshya's name rises. And I think that it is the teamwork which has made it possible to get recognized not just by the state and the country, but even we have won a lot of international awards as well for the organization. And talking about Garimagra, yes, we were the first in India to start a Garimagra transgender shelter home, again supported by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. In fact, the minister himself inaugurated. That time there was Mr. Thawarchand Gehlot was the Minister for Social Justice Empowerment. He himself inaugurated the Garimagra in Baroda, which was the first one to start. And yes, the government, this regulation is such that we need to provide jobs to the community within a year of them coming to stay with us. But we have been really fortunate that just within few months, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 4 months of them coming and staying, we have been able to give them job opportunities, and really well placed jobs. We have a gas station, a petrol pump, who has employed a lot of the community. We have got corporates, we got like companies like Bombardier, Then people from have gone to Bangalore, getting a good salary. So that way we have managed to empower the community because see, financial empowerment is a big empowerment, and financial and social, these two are the strongest pillars which the community needs. And that's something which we are always trying to get them, so that they are living a life of dignity and respect, and they are able to live a life of freedom the way they want, and not having to be subject to stigma and discrimination by the society.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very inspiring story.
Yeah, we move on to the Q&A session. Gohil, if you could unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to appreciate Manvinder for such an inspiring story and for the struggle that he's had. It's really inspirational. I had two questions. One has already been asked by Professor Patel, which I'm very thankful to, about the kind of movement he's taking up and how is actually practically working for them, which is again very appreciated. The second part is like, how are things now? I just wanted to know from the very influential background that he comes from. So if Manvinder could tell us how are things now in the family after he, in early 2000s, when he took this very bold decision. So how does he see things now afterwards? I just want to ask that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think the royal family, extended one, near one, they are all extremely proud of me now. In fact, things changed after I went for a lot of shows, because see, initially it's unfortunate in a country like ours, there's not even sex education. Basic sex education is not there in schools and colleges. So people are not aware about our issues. So there were so many misconceptions which people had, and that's why I was subject to so much of stigma and discrimination, violation of human rights and all. But then gradually people started educating themselves. And who educated them? It was media. It was influential people. Like I was on the Oprah Winfrey show, not once but 3 times. And then I was on the very popular show called the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which is extremely popular amongst the youth population. So it was shows like these which, when people saw, and there are a lot of people who are treat them as their icons. They're like Oprah is their role model, or the Kim Kardashian or Kendall. Or, they have these role models are there, and when they openly talk about supporting the cause and supporting me, then naturally the people are bound to change their mindset. So that way, gradually, the people started changing the mindset. Now, I mean, of course, because I'm the only royal in India who has been on Oprah and been on Kardashian. So naturally, for them, it's a big, huge thing. I get invitations coming even more than my father gets. Sometimes it's very embarrassing. He doesn't get invited, and I get invited by other royals for going and coming for something. Now there's a new trend which has started in a lot of palaces in India have become hotels for tourists. So now there's this LGBT tourism has started in Gujarat, and there are my uncles who own palaces in different parts of Gujarat. They have started sending these LGBT travelers to me, that and they feel proud. And somebody asked me, "Oh, do you know the prince?" He said, "Yeah, he's my nephew," and he's very proud of me, that he's my favorite nephew. And then they send these groups to me. They come and stay with me. They come and spend some time with me. I get groups coming from Europe and Australia and America and all over the world. People are now coming there, thanks to my relatives and thanks to my extended family. So the moral of the story is, if I have to put it in short, is it is the education, it is the awareness which changes people to to rethink and I would say to unlearn. We have learned something which we don't need to learn that. So we have to unlearn ourselves and then learn the right things, and get all those misconceptions out of our heads about us, And that's how the change happens, the positive change happens, and you start getting support.
Thank you. Shireen ji has also asked a question. I would read it out from the chat box. They say, you are very brave, sir. Would you say to coming forward to making a political effort to lobby for the LGBTQIA community? As a researcher, they would like to know more about LGBTQIA tourism as well. Dr. Shireen Abbas is a woman and gender rights expert.
Okay, I didn't understand the first part. Do you mean political advocacy, or was it something that she meant, uh, or kind of supporting a party? I mean, I was not clear about that first part of the question. If you can clarify.
Coming forward to make a political effort to lobby, they mean a political party or a lobby for LGBTQIA community.
See, I have been doing a lot of political advocacy, and one thing good which comes in my favor is that being from a member of royal family, I do get appointments faster with the politicians than other people. I just have to say who I am, and the I get appointment from the minister or anyone whom I have to meet. But I have always used this platform to create awareness amongst the political parties as well. So see, I am a very apolitical person. I do not. I have this principle in my life. I do not favor any political party in India. I favor the individual who supports me. He can be from any party whatsoever. I don't have a problem with that. But if the individual is in my favor, then I support that individual. I do not support the party. That's something very, very clear what I do. And I have known people from all political parties, the ruling party, the opposition, and everyone. I mean, all the parties. Someone is there whom I know. What I try to do is I try to create an ally from each and every political party I know. And it is these people, these political leaders, these parliamentarians, these government officers who are my allies. They are trying to spread the word and to talk to their counterparts. Because if a minister talks to another minister, or an MP talks to another MP, that makes a more difference than me talking to them. So that's how I've been trying to do allyship. I would like to point out one thing which I did almost 5 years back. I got an MP, not 5, I think it was more than 5. It was perhaps around 8 or 10 years back. There was a member of parliament who was standing for Lok Sabha elections from the Baroda constituency, and he was from the BJP party. He came to me and asked me that I'm standing for the elections and I would like you to support me. You meaning the LGBT community to support me. Because one thing is for sure, even though we are a sexual minority, we are very well networked, and we are quite united when it comes to many issues. I mean, I'm talking about Baroda in Gujarat. He knew for the fact that we are working for close to 5,000 members of the community just in the city of Baroda, and one vote is equal to 3, because 3 or 4, you have either a mom, dad, you have both, you have got a wife, you have got a brother or a sibling or something. So which meant that almost 15 to 20,000 votes were in my pocket. And so he came to me. I had a meeting with my board and I said, okay, if we support you, what will you give us in return? He said, I will talk to Mr. Modi about you. And that time, Mr. Modi was the chief minister of Gujarat. I think it was before 2014, 2012 or 2013 or something, before he became the prime minister. And he said, I will put in a word to him and to see how we can help you. So I said, fine, let's take the chance. There's no harm in taking a chance. So I just sent text messages to all the people I knew, I mean, through my staff and all. And we decided to support him. And when the election results came, he won by the highest majority. You can imagine he won by the highest majority in the entire state of Gujarat. Nobody had such high majority. And the first thing he did was he contacted me. He came to my organization Lakshya and he took blessings from our community. He says, because of you that I got such high majority. Now let's sit down and work. He was unlike the other politicians, and to cut the story short, he was the first person to have taken me and my transgender friends to meet the Minister for Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. That time Congress was in power. So being a BJP MP, still he took us to the Congress minister, had a meeting with her. That time her name was Shelja. She was the Congress minister. And even before the Nalsa judgment was declared by the Supreme Court in 2014, we had already met the minister and we had conveyed to her the issues of the transgenders. And that's how the beginning of the transgender rights movement started in India. So you see how a political lobbying, how a support towards a person from a political party can help. And not just that, this person is still in power. He's still in BJP. He's currently the MLA in Baroda. He still supports us. He comes for our pride marches. Even when we lost the case in Supreme Court, he was there with a black flag in his hand. So, the people, he remembers that we supported him in the past. So he still supports us whenever we have any issues. So I've been doing that kind of work. I myself, I am not a political person. I don't wish to stand for elections. Many people have told me, but I'm not a person, who can be successful in being a politician, because I am a very honest person. And in honesty doesn't work in politics. You have to lie at every stage of your life. So that's not my cup of tea or coffee. So I think I'll not go to stand, but yes, I definitely will support a person like I've supported in the past, and to see that how we can support someone who can support us.
Thank you so much for your answer. Shreya Pandey has raised their hand. If you could please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir, for this daring and encouraging presentation. It really inspires all of us. I have a very quick question, very short question, but I'd like to know. I mean, this is just in the flow of the questions that have been asked by Professor Patel and the other person. Um, I just want to know that the people, the men that you have been working for, and they have been given jobs, has their assimilation been seamless, or have they also faced discrimination? Do you often encounter complaints from them? I mean, do they encounter problems? So just want to know, is it seamless or it is very problematic?
Yeah, I think you raised a very valid point. See, we need to prepare both ends. When you it's like, when you make a bridge, when you start making a bridge, you make the bridge from both ends. Then the bridge is complete. So the transgender community or the LGBT community, whenever they're to be given any job opportunities, they definitely need to be trained what is expected from them and what they need to take care of when they are given, they are going to work in some corporates and all that. Similarly, the corporates need to be also trained. They need to be aware what are the issues of the community and what they should be taking care of when they are employing, so that there is no discrimination is seen, the work environment is friendly towards them. So that's how we need to bridge the gap. But still, see, in spite of doing all the bridging gap work and all that, there has been cases where we have encountered, where we have taken action. One case had come to me. There was a person who identified as gay. He was employed, and the boss, his boss refused to give him promotion, and he has been working really hard for that corporate. There was his colleagues in the same corporate which got promotion, and this guy was not getting a promotion. And of course, the boss knew he was gay. So then this case came to me, and I said, why is your boss not giving you promotion? Well, you're working so hard, you should have been given an incentive, have been given an increment. He said, no, my boss is saying you're gay, so why do you need a promotion? So I said, that's not a logic reason, if you're gay, then why should you not get a promotion? He said, well, he's saying, oh, you're not going to have a wife, you're not getting married, you won't have a family, you won't have children. Why do you have to worry about anything? Why do you need a promotion? Be happy as whatever you. I said, no, that's not fair. You cannot reject a promotion just on the basis of one's sexuality. So we fought the case. We had to go to the court. I told him, you need to be vocal about yourself. If you are ready to do that, I can fight for you. And we fought for that case. We got an apology from the boss that he had indeed it's a violation of a human right. It's not something he's done just something for the sake of doing it. And he apologized, and we got him to sign a letter of apology. And that letter of apology had to be made public so that other corporates don't do the similar thing. See, when you take action, you have to see that this thing goes out, so that people realize that you dare not violate a human right of your employee on the basis of one's sexuality. So we have to work, and we have to take action. Just sitting quiet and accepting or bearing thing is not going to happen.
Thank you so much, sir. Shinoy ji has also asked a question. I'll just read it out. They say he is a transgender man who works in the social impact sector with the LGBT persons, sex workers, and persons with HIV. He's asking that when we look at inclusion as policy, there is a gap in understanding queer realities that corporations, media, politicians think that what they see in media. Accepting families, thriving careers, etc., is the grassroots reality as well. What can we do as open, visible queer people or queer people who are public figures to break this image and affect change?
Yeah, see, as I told you, there are a lot of gaps. I know a lot of us, there are many activists in India who are doing a lot of good work, trying to break a lot of barriers and all. But see, it's going to take time, by the time things change in this country. So we have to just keep working. We have to. That's why I always stress in the importance of creating allies. We need to create allies at each and every section of the society. Whether you're economically well off or not well off, and you're educated, not educated, everywhere we need to create allies, because it is through these allies that will help us mainstream our issues in the society. And this mainstreaming is very, very important. And that's why we find many times problems in corporates when people are not understanding our issues. And, even if they understand, they will just ignore it and think that, no, we are right and they are wrong, and that kind of situation. I'd like to give you an example of some of you might be knowing. In Kochi, there was this metro. When Kochi Metro started, they had got the transgenders to work for the metro. It was fine for a few days, I think few months or something. It was fine. Then gradually, many of the trans community left the metro system, and they were not willing to join back. So that's what exactly happened. Because of these loopholes which are existing, either between the community and the corporate sector, that needs to be filled up, and that can be only filled up with help of education, awareness, having continuous sensitization happening. And I always tell the corporates, whenever they call me for their speaking engagements, I said, you only think about us in month of June. Why? Because June is the Pride month. Come July, they don't even know what is Pride. So that should not happen. We are not some objects which should be only remembered once in 1 month in a year. It should be a continuous process. I mean, keep engaging in us. If you really think you want to support us, you want to break the stigma and discrimination, then continue working with us, continue supporting us. And one way which I've always been telling a lot of corporates is, have somebody from the community as representing the diversity inclusion chapter. That makes a sense, because then you are first of all giving opportunity. They always say, oh, we should be given empowerment and all that. Begin there. Even I tell the government, I tell the police department. Just the other day, I met the police commissioner, and he was telling me, oh, these transgenders are this, that. I said, why can't you employ a transgender in the police department? That it will break all your barriers. If you are so much sympathizing over the transgender community, then why can't a trans person become a police officer? So begin from your own place. Now, why do you have to think about anyone else? So that's what we need to be doing. We have to and we have to talk and talk and talk. We have to be as vocal as possible. We have to break the silence. We cannot just sit quiet, and that's exactly what I did. I said, I'm not going to sit quiet, I'm going to talk. So much so that people started giving me death threats, and they still give me death threats, because I'm so vocal that they are scared of me, that what this guy is going to say next, we don't know. I don't care, I said, give me death threats, whatever threats you give me, I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm going to keep talking whole my life, till I'm alive. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I had a question of my own, if that's okay. My question is that this whole process of coming out and being accepted, how much ever it is in the society, did your status of belonging to a royal family and belonging to the Kshatriya community, did it hinder the process in some ways? Because while the status comes with an increased access to resources, it also comes with an increased social expectation and behavioral restrictions as well. So if you could talk about that.
Yeah. So, see, before I became a LGBT rights activist, I was already doing a lot of social work for the people of my town, and for the community. I'm not talking about the LGBT community, but I'm talking about the Kshatriya community, the warrior community from where I come from. So when I came out, it was definitely seen as a shock, but it didn't take time for them to realize that this is again a similar kind of a social work which I'm doing, as I'm doing for working for environment, or working for organic farming, or working for yoga. I was teaching yoga in my town also. I was a yoga teacher there. I'm also trying to. I'm a musician as well, so I've been promoting a lot of Indian classical dance, music, things like that. So I working on heritage preservation. So people have seen me as a social activist in the past, and that's something which comes naturally when you're born in a royal family. You are a born social activist. It comes as a part of your responsibility. And I mentioned in the beginning, we may be in a democratic republic where we don't have the powers to rule, but we are still the custodian of this rich cultural heritage which has been passed on to us by our ancestors. And still the people have a lot of respect and expectations from us, even though we are not being ruled by them. So some things did come as an advantage to me, yes, but I did have to lose a lot also. I had to lose a lot of respect. Imagine 5,000 people coming in the street protesting against me. It was a big sense of disrespect shown to someone who would fall on my feet and respect me. So there has been a lot of humiliation, public shame, which has happened. But I knew that the path which I'm leading is a path of honesty, and I have been greatly inspired by Gandhiji, who, on the basis of truth and honesty, managed to get freedom for our country and get rid of the Britishers. I said, if I also use the same thing in my life, be truthful to myself, be honest to myself and to others, then I will also be able to fight for the rights and give freedom to my brothers and sisters of the community. So that's how I stood by my principles. And I said, come what may, whatever, if I have to give up some things, I have to sacrifice anything in my life, ultimately I will be the winner, because it is said, Satya Meva Jayate. Truth will always win.
Yes, thank you. We would take the last question. Manisha ji has asked that does the experience of coming out of the closet or transgressing the boundary of binary gender also changes a person's affirmations or relations with their religious beliefs and practices. Manisha ji is a PhD research scholar in the field of disability and gender.
So what is the question?
Uh, does the experience of coming out of the closet changes a person's relation with their religion?
The religious beliefs, yeah. See, one thing I've noticed, I mean, of course, talking about myself, I have been a very secular person, right, since the beginning. And I think, again, that comes from being part of this family, because in our families, we are, from the beginning, especially in ours, we have treated all religions equally. We don't have any, like the Britishers did divide and rule. We have equality for all religions. Though I practice, born as a Hindu person, but for me all religions are equal. I have no problem with any religious beliefs. But having said that, I've observed within the community, a lot of us, they tend to become atheists, because of the fact that always the parents bring gods and goddesses and religion in the picture, and the so-called society. Oh, you're doing a sinful thing. This is evil. You'll go to hell. This, that, everything. They keep torturing. That that God will have no mercy on you, and the poor God doesn't even know that his parents are doing this. No God on earth is going to say that. That you should spread hatred and not spread love. But anyway, that's what people do. So I have seen this increase of atheism within the community, because they said, okay, if you say your God is saying this, then we don't believe in any God. So it doesn't apply to us. This doesn't matter to us. So this atheism has definitely increased in lot, especially I've seen it in, and I'm not talking just from the Indian context, I'm talking from the globe, the world over. I've traveled. A lot of people from the Orthodox, Christian and Catholic backgrounds, they are turning atheists, because the church has a great influence, on our issues. It's many times anything which has to start, it starts from the church. And then the frustration comes within the community, and they said, okay, we don't believe there's any Jesus or Christ or church and all. For us, it doesn't exist. So why there's no reason for putting that in front of us, because it doesn't matter to us whether Jesus is there or not there. We don't believe in that. So that's why this coming out has definitely related with the religious beliefs. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, sir. If we do not have any further questions, we can move on to the next session. Thank you, Manvinder Singh Gohil ji, for such an enriching session.
Thanks.
And we look forward to learning from you in the further IMPRI events. Moving on to the next session, I'm delighted to invite Ragamalika Karthikeyan ji. She is a journalist, communications professional, and trainer with over 15 years of experience. He has worked as an editor with the News Minute for over 7 years and has experience across print, digital, and television. She's the co-lead of the Inclusive Newsrooms project, which is making the Indian media more LGBTQIA plus sensitive. Ragamalika ji will guide us through the topic of directing the narrative, how journalism can change queer lives. We welcome you. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Astaba. Thank you, IMPRI, and thank you so much, Professor Vibhuti, for inviting me to this event. I think we met several years ago. I'm very happy to be here. And sorry?
I remember I said that.
Yes. It's very interesting to be here, and I think we have a very wide sort of group of participants, which is always interesting because we all learn from each other. And I was here for Moulee's session and Manvinder's session. My name is Raga. My pronouns are he and she. Please do not call me sir or ma'am or anything. Just Raga will do, no G as well. I'm going to keep this very interactive. I think IMPRI had asked me if there were any reading material to be shared. And I'd shared the Inclusive Newsrooms Media Reference Guide. Did anybody go through that? Was anyone able to go through that?
The readings were shared to the participants. They were shared on email.
Sure. All right. Okay, let me start with a very basic question. What was the last, or what was the most impactful news story that you guys have read about LGBTQIA plus persons, issues, or communities? Like, and you can raise your hand, or you can just like, unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and like tell me. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I would just share one example, which happened last year. We had the very first transgender doctor in Pakistan who
Mhm.
completed the MBBS and was actually acknowledged with the job. So it happened for the very first time. I thought
Nice.
it was a big milestone achieved there. Thank
And
you.
why did the story impact you?
Because the kind of story she shared on the media, she really faced a lot of struggle. She had a lot of struggle on her part,
Mhm.
and she was denied with the basic facility as a student by the management, by the administration of several medical colleges. They were not able to, they were not ready to take her on board. So crossing all those things and then finally reaching to a point made a very big impact on the lives of many others as well. So for
Mhm.
me, I think she serves as an inspirational story for
It was an
many other people.
inspirational story. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I'd ask you to just like unmute and like say, what is the story that you remember the most and why?
This is Dr. Nandini
Hi.
Murli here.
Hi.
One of the this was so recent, one of the most impactful stories I've read was this has to do with Yashni Pritika, who's the first trans woman sub-inspector in Tamil Nadu. And for me, what was very interesting about the story was the enormous role the mother played in acknowledging a child who was gender non-conforming and just provided the space and support to embrace her identity.
Mm.
And I thought this was very relevant because children with childhood gender non-conformity often face a lot of abuse, parental abuse, uh, and the home is not the safe space it is supposed to be. So here was this a mother who was actually rewriting the narrative and challenging the status quo.
And why did it personally, like, what did it personally mean to you?
That is a very interesting question. I work in the space of LGBTQIA plus issues, particularly with trans issues. In fact, I've co-authored a book with my co-author is a self-identified trans woman. Why did this impact me? In my personal life, I also struggle with stigma, shame, secrecy, and silence. Not, I don't identify on the spectrum, but since you asked, I feel I need to be authentic. I'm a person impacted by suicide loss. And there's so much of othering which happens with me as well, and therefore the need to I've written a book about it. So the need to really put out those counter narratives, because where there is stigma and shame and secrecy and silence, it's very imperative for persons with lived experience to challenge the narrative, to really dismantle the status quo. So, and therefore, I connect a lot with earlier, I used to have a very cognitive understanding of stigma. It was so interesting because I also worked in the space of HIV/AIDS. And as an arrogant consultant, I would think when I went to the field, this was in the early 90s, that I knew everything. And the community really told me how little I knew. So that was when I started listening to the voices and wisdom of people with lived experiences. Though several decades later, when it came to a very personal issue, that was when I realized, oh my God, having a cognitive understanding of stigma versus really having a lived experience of what stigma means are two very different things. And therefore, if I had to be authentic, I just felt I had to speak up. So therefore, the connect I have with narratives which challenge the status quo.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I'm sure that wasn't easy. Thanks,
It wasn't, yes, but I'm glad I chose to walk this path and did not choose to be silent. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Ragha.
Hi.
This is Swati.
Swati,
I
hi.
teach psychology. Hi, I teach psychology in a college here, and I also have an opportunity to mentor some of my students.
Mhm.
So, in one of the mentoring sessions, I had one student who came out of their identity to me and to the class, and it personally moved me because I have seen stories of inspiration like all of you share and others share here in media, elsewhere, in books. It was all at a distance to me, no? But to know their journey, sitting next to them, moved me so much, and I was truly inspired by what they have to say, how they have to narrate their journey, and it was also amazing to see how the student community accepted them with open hands, and many more of such discussions were fostered because of that sharing by that person. So I think that truly is something that I will remember forever. Just
Right.
because I could hear them talk about it right next to me.
Right. Thank you so much, Swati. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any media stories? I'll just take one more. Any media stories that really like resonated with you, that made an impact on you? Yes, Shreya.
Hello.
Sugar salo.
Swati, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Shreya, please go on.
Yes, hi. I specialize in European studies, so I kind of follow Europe. So there was this recent news of Gabriel Attal, the 34-year-old French education minister who was named the country's new prime minister. So he's the youngest prime minister and he's gay, and he's also touted to be one of the world's most prominent and powerful LGBTQ politicians. But when he was education minister, I mean, I'm happy with this and everything, but then when I read more about him, he's actually enacted a controversial ban on the wearing of the abaya in French public schools. He's done other good work. He's done good work as well, like raising awareness of bullying in schools, but then he's also done this, which also makes us understand that it's LGBTQ is not only about this. They are people, and they have choices, and they can be politicians in their own right. So it is more of a holistic take on it. And if I can just quickly share one thing, because I'm a teacher, I just asked a random question in my class. We were discussing public administration, but nevertheless this came to this, and I asked my students that what if a gay student comes and he takes admission, will you have a problem? So one of the students, male, he was a male, and he said that I would have a problem, ma'am, to share the common bathroom that we have, the washroom that we have. We don't have a separate provision for them. So I would like you to answer it for me. Of course, I did what I could, and I said that this is in your mind, and this certainly is not what you should be bothered about. We can have safe spaces for each other, but I would like a more nuanced response from you on this. I mean, at any point in your discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shreya. Thank you. I think everywhere in the world, there is a susu potty problem. Everywhere, like bathrooms are a problem for some reason. Somewhere or the other, the bathroom problem comes up. All right. So the reason why I think, I mean, I've worked in the media for a very long time. I worked as a journalist for a very long time. And I think the reason why I stay in journalism, or the reason why journalism, I think, is extremely important, or media is extremely important, is because stories are the way that we relate with each other, right? So even a news story, we call it, like in the industry, we call it a story. We don't call it an article, right? Like we call it a story. We say, is the story published? And that's because we are telling something, we are narrating something. And these stories are the way that, we actually understand each other. When you're making a new friend, you'd probably sit down and like tell them stories about your college days, or like, this happened to me in school. Like those are ways of relating, right? Like we tell each other stories. As human beings, we connect with each other through stories. And in the media, the stories that you see are reaching out at a very large scale, right? These are stories that are not limited to a one-on-one discussion or a room of like, 30, 35 people like this, 45 people like this, but goes out to like thousands, millions of people. And that way, the impact that they create, the stories, the impact that they create is extremely high. And we have seen the way stories improve people's lives, or the way stories like really, um, you know, affect how people see different things. So I want to talk about one particular story. So I'm an editor, right? Like I'm a journalist in the sense that I'm not usually on the ground reporting things. I am behind the desk, and I'm usually like directing reporters and mentoring them on like how to write their stories, how to sort of present a particular narrative. So a reporter came to me with a story which was published in a lot of newspapers in Tamil, right, about this young person who had been murdered by their brother. And the story is that this person realized they were trans, and she left home because she was facing violence from her family. And she ran away, and she, went to a group of transgender women. She wanted to live with them and stuff. Unfortunately, because she was a minor, the trans women could not take her in, right? Because immediately what can happen is that they can face cases from the police, because you can't take in a minor if you're not like sort of responsible for them, if you're not related to them, or you're not the state. So these women then said, okay, the best course of action is to take this girl to the police station and inform them that she's run away from home, but that she is facing trouble at home, she is facing violence at home. What the police did is usually what the police does in a lot of cases, right? Not go by the book, not actually try to help, but do this counseling nonsense, and they just like sent her back home, which is already violent, right? Which is the reason why she came back, but the police just like sent her back home. And within days, she's been murdered by her brother. Now, all of the stories that were published until that point used her dead name. Do we all know what a dead name means? Okay, it's a name that a transgender person leaves behind, right? So usually a transgender person may want to change their name to match what their gender is, right? Not what their assigned gender is, but what their felt gender is. So they may change their name. The name that they leave behind, the name that has been given to them at birth, is called a dead name, right? So all of these newspapers dead named her, and all of them used like a photo of her and of her brother who had been arrested. And they all misgendered this young person. Misgendering is when you use the wrong pronouns for somebody, or in different languages, I think it works differently. In English, we use pronouns. Sorry. Yeah. So in English, we use pronouns. In other languages, it works differently, right? Like how you gender a person. Some languages are not gendered at all, but yeah, many languages are, right? So they had misgendered this girl, and the reporter came to me and said, "Hey, this is what has happened." And I always believe that we have to take a story forward. As a journalist, I believe that we have to take a story forward. There's no point in let's sort of saying, "This is what the police said. This is what the FIR said," right? And this is what all the newspapers have published. So I said, okay, like, we need to talk about the fact that there are problems there in the system that cause this kind of a thing, right? For instance, there is a law called the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Law, which was passed, I think, in 2018 or 19. I'm not sure. Now, the thing is that it's called protection of rights, right? But it has a lot of problems, right? It gives a very large importance to the birth family or the biological family, and says a child cannot be separated from the biological family, without recognizing really that the biological family is the first place of violence for a lot of queer persons, right? For a lot of LGBTQ persons, this is the first place of violence, first site of violence. And this person, so I said, okay, we'll do a larger story on how the laws are actually not supporting young queer people, right? And I said, okay, so what is her name? And this person said, use the dead name, and said, the reporter told me that this is the name that we have, and the police are not telling me. And the police will obviously not know or not care what her name was. And I said, I'm not carrying a story with her dead name, right? I'm not dead naming her when this person died because she chose her identity, she chose her authentic self over what society told her to be. She faced violence because of it in life, and in death, I'm not going to like repeat that violence on her, right? So I said, you go back, talk to the community, talk to people, and find out what was her name, right? Which is a very simple thing. I mean, our names are our first markers of identity, right? So if I say my name is Raga, it means something to me when you say Raga. It means something to you when you use my name, right? And I can't use a name that a person like definitely chose not to use, especially when she died for it, right? So she went back. She had to do quite a bit of digging because, again, like, all our police, all our systems, our paperwork, everything is like, related to what was on your birth certificate or like, what was on your Aadhaar card and stuff like that, which genuinely doesn't make much of a difference in the real lived experiences of people. So she went back and she found out that her name was Dakshayani. She was 17, right? Like in a year or a few months, less than a year, she could have left her home without consequences of, the police forcing her to go back to her house because she was a minor. And the police, when they came to know that she was facing violence in her home, still did not like, the system did not like, find any way of like protecting her from her family and from the streets. So what is this happening in the sort of world? So that is the issue that I wanted to like talk about. That is the issue I thought the story should convey to the particular reader, right? And which is why I think media narratives are extremely important. Now, once we use the name Dakshayani, we did the work of like sort of finding out what her name was. We did the work of like addressing her properly and like framing the narrative in a certain way. Then, so what happens in the media, again, as a journalist who's been in the field for a very long time, is what happens in the media is a lot of copycat, right? So today, Times of India publishes something. Tomorrow, like, Hindustan Times will publish the same story, and they will basically, most of the time, what happens is that, they will play off of each other, right? So most of the time, I don't believe in this like sort of breaking news mania that a lot of news organizations have, where they're like, todo, we have to break the story first. We have to be the first one to, because they're doing it for the TRP. But I still think that it is important for good journalists with perspective, with knowledge of issues, with intersectional knowledge of issues, to be the ones whose stories are getting placed in important places in the media, right? Like they're getting placed in important magazines or newspapers or online publications, television channels. I mean, television channels, like I don't want to go there, but that they are getting the importance that they deserve, because once that story is out, that decides how the rest of the media ecosystem is sort of going to take that story forward, so that is, I think, extremely important. So if a crime happens and the first story that is out, like for instance, there was a lot of newspapers had published a story a few years ago about how a woman kills husband because he was bald, right? And she thought he was not handsome enough. And why did the story go out? And everybody laughed, right? Ha ha ha, look at this woman. She's so superfluous. She's so stupid. Like, how dangerous women's like obsession with beauty is and stuff like that. So they publish these stories because there is a male crime reporter at the police station taking the story from a male police officer who has a male writer who has written the story and given it to the reporter, published by a male editor without any questions. And usually crime reporters, and I think it's important to understand how news works, especially like crime reporting, because unfortunately we are in a world where, journalism about marginalized communities and minorities is still in the, either you're like, talking about like death and torture, or you're talking about like a spectacle, right? Like there's no in between. We don't talk about marginalized people. We don't talk about minorities as human beings. We just like, either, oh, this person was gruesomely murdered, or, oh, look, peacocks at Pride, right? Like those are the binaries that we are dealing with. So crime reporters work this way, right? They just like take everything from the police. They don't like question it. Although in news we say you need to have like a minimum of 3 sources to confirm a story. But crime is what like fills up newspaper columns, right? Crime stories are the most read stories, because we have like an obsession with like the gruesome stuff. And this person just published it. So when the News Minute is a women-led organization, we're a feminist organization. We have a lot of women editors. I think most of our editors are women. I think we have 2 men. Like sometimes we joke about the fact that we have 33% reservation for men in our newsroom. And we had a woman reporter who got the story, and the woman editor like looked at it and said, something is off, right? Like this seems ridiculous. This can't be the truth, right? So they dug deeper. They just like decided to ask a few more questions than every other crime reporter who published that story did. And basically it turned out to be a story of marital rape, right? This woman was facing marital rape from this man over a prolonged period of time, and she couldn't take it any longer, and she decided to murder him. Now that puts the story in a very different context. Now, why do you have one news organization which can find that story and not just republish the same crap about woman murders husband because he was not handsome, he was bald and shit like that? Because you have women in positions of power. Similarly, unless you have like queer people, unless you have Dalit people, unless you have disabled people in newsrooms, unless you have people who are knowledgeable about issues, who care, right? Who don't think that, everything is just a woke agenda or whatever, or everything is like a, fashion or whatever. That's when you will get the real stories. And I think that is why it is important for our media to be educated, sensitized, and for us to have like a lot of diversity in newsrooms and in news media, because media sets the narrative. What you read, we all follow influencers, not just in the social media age, like, even before, like we follow a social reformer, we follow political leaders, we follow religious leaders, whoever, right? And we follow in this age, like, journalists, we follow everybody. And media amplifies the voices of these influencers, and media is also an influencer, right? Journalists are also influencers, and journalists amplify the voices of these influencers, which is why setting the right narrative is important. And that setting of the right narrative can change lives. We've done a story, for instance, about trans women in a rural village in Karnataka who are being denied housing because there was a Khap Panchayat there, which was like, oh no, like how can we give you houses and stuff like that, right? Now, once you bring media attention to a story like that, the district collector will come to know about it. Even if the district collector knew about it before, now the district collector knows that everybody else knows about it, and there will be like pressure to act, right? So which is why having the right person tell the story, and telling the right story is extremely important, I think. So all of you who are interested in like, journalism, or you want to write opinion pieces, or you write like, researched pieces about LGBTQ issues, it is important that you use the right narrative, that you use the right language. Moulee, who spoke earlier, he's from Queer Chennai Chronicles, and we were talking a few years ago about during the Queer Lit Fest that Queer Chennai Chronicles organizes. We had a panel on media narratives, right? And we were discussing whether media has any like style guides, right? Like for instance, if and these are things that happen in real life. If, for instance, a journalist wrote CPI-M instead of CPI Maoist, right? Now that's a big problem. No political editor is going to be okay with that, because you don't know to make the distinction. However, when it comes to LGBTQ stories or stories of marginalized people, people make mistakes left, right, and center, and nobody gives a damn, right? Because you think there are no consequences, right? But I think queer activists over a long period of time have made sure that, there are call outs and call ins as well, right? So when we were talking, we decided that, maybe if there is no style guide, we should come up with one. So we started working on inclusive newsrooms, and inclusive newsrooms is a project to make the Indian media more LGBTQ sensitive. We've released glossaries and media guides in English, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Kannada, and Malayalam are upcoming. We want to do more languages as and when we have the resources for it. We've been doing trainings across the country for journalists on how to cover LGBTQIA plus issues sensitively. And like I said, diversity in newsrooms is also important. So we had a conference for queer journalists in February this year. We launched a fellowship. The stories from the fellowship are coming out because, it's not just enough. Sometimes, media, you tell them like, hey, you've made this mistake. They're like, yeah, that's because you haven't told us what the right thing to do is. So we're like, okay, here, we're telling you what the right thing to do is. So please follow that. And I think this language is also important for other, sort of publications that you may come up with, not just necessarily media work. So I'd request you to please like download the guide. I think they've sent it on email. I can put it in the chat also later. So the guide is available in multiple languages. We want to do more languages, and the way we are going about it is we're not translating. We're not like, thought of thinking in English, writing in English, and then like, just translating into other languages. We're localizing it. We're having consultations in each language with people who speak that language about what are the terms that they want to use for themselves, right? Because at the core of it, at the core of LGBTQIA plus identity is self-identification, and you respect that. You say, my name is this, then you use that name for that person, right? You respect the fact that they have given you a name. They say, these are my pronouns, you respect that. You don't like second guess them. You don't tell them, no, but I know better than you. No, you don't, right? You tell me something about yourself, I'll use that for yourself. Because I think there are a lot of women, cis women here. So cisgender, transgender, cisgender is essentially cis means on the same side as. So if you are assigned a gender at birth, like how are you assigned a gender? Doctor looks at you, says you're female, you're male, whatever. It's an assigned gender, right? There are intersex people. There are lots of intersex variations. We can come to that in case anybody has questions, or you can like read the guide, right? But so you're assigned, you stay on that side. That's called cis. You're assigned something, you don't stay on that side. You move from there, right? And I don't necessarily look at it as like an opposite. It's like a very 3D space. You can move anywhere from what you were assigned. So I'm a gender fluid person. I don't necessarily fit into the binary of man or woman. Sometimes feel like a man, sometimes feel like a woman, sometimes just feel like a blob who's extremely lazy and doesn't want to do anything because this world is shit, right? But the point is that it's not like this is one end and that is the other end, but imagine more like a 3D space, right? So anybody who doesn't stay where they are assigned but moves is trans, right? So a lot of cisgender women, when we talk about misgendering and dead naming and everything, people are like, oh, but that's not such a big issue, right? Like, why do you care? So I just want to ask the cis women in the room, like, how many of you have ever received like a marketing phone call, or like have made a phone call to like a call center for any kind of service, and they say, sir, or they say, Mr. something so and so, and how irritated you get when that happens, right? So if you're misgendered, you get pissed, but when I am misgendered, I should not, is it? So that's, I think, at the core of it. You respect people for who they say they are. And you also understand that there are a lot of intersectionalities, right? So because I'm queer doesn't mean that my caste goes away, or because I'm queer doesn't mean that you don't have a queer person can have the privileges of their birth, including whether they were born in an urban area or a rural area, right? Whether they had an English education or did not have an English education, whether they are from an upper caste or a lower caste, whether they have a disability or don't have a disability, right? So all of these things are privileges, and all of them act in intersection with each other, right? Sometimes your queer identity is what is causing discrimination that you face, and sometimes it's something else, right? And sometimes you don't face discrimination even though you belong to a marginalized community because of some other privilege that you have. So these are all things that we need to understand when we are dealing with issues, when we are writing for public consumption. And when we want to be like, public persons, when we want to be intellectuals with a voice, right? When you want to influence people in some way, because I think one of the reasons why most of us are here is because of that, is because we want to do work that, matters. So yes, I think that's about what I wanted to say. Media like really informs and shapes views, right? So I think, yeah, that is why directing the narrative is like very important. There is no like sort of, nobody writes a story out of thin air, right? Like nobody writes a story without context. We all write the things that we do or say the things that we do in public, make speeches, make reels, tweets, Facebook posts, whatever it is, we write it from our context. So it's very important that we enrich that context, very important that we learn a lot more, read, and ask each other questions like respectfully. These are platforms where you can do that, right? So thank you. I'm open to questions. Any question that is asked respectfully will be answered.
Thank you for such an enriching session. While the
Can I?
questions.
Can I? This is Dr. Shireen Abbas. Can you unmute me, please?
You are unmuted. We are able to hear you.
Ragamalika, as a former journalist and Chevening scholar, salute to you. Content is king, and you were king/queen, whichever you want to, whichever you want to.
Royal.
It's
Royal,
so
yeah?
you were royal. You were royal. You were royal. I don't want to misgender you. And you just gave me this wonderful thing because I feel gender fluid at times. And I kept saying, that I am a woman I am a man in a woman's body. And I had to do an MA in Women and Gender Studies after my PhD to be able to understand what was exactly wrong with my marriage. I was married to a closet gay. And I did the entire course and, understood what was wrong. And finally, I've divorced the man. I just wanted to applaud your content, really, really. And I'll connect with you on your email. And Professor Vibhuti Patel, I would love to know which university you are from. I am, thanks to our wonderful bulldozer Baba, currently jobless. So please excuse me. I have registered as a student, but I'm very soon going to. I have registered with Jamia Hamdard also for an online course. So I am technically a student. Okay, I can't afford to pay 4,500, but I paid the student fee and this thing. So Raga, this is wonderful. That the News Minute is a largely women, and I love that bit about 33% reservation for men. That was really cool. I would love to be able to send stories from UP, because there are I once a journalist, always a journalist, and I work in the area of women in Islam, and I've done numerous sessions on how Islam is being misinterpreted by the powers that be, because talaq cannot, nikah cannot happen unless you take consent from a woman. And how much sexuality is monsterized in Islam, and this thing. I would love to work on such stories. You've just given me, my heart's this thing. So that I'll connect with you on WhatsApp or this thing. You can. My number is there in the IMPRI group, but I've taken down your email also, Raga. And please continue to have such sessions. I was a little skeptical about, what the content would be. But after just listening to Raga and the gentleman before that, the Prince was a little, I'm sorry, too much of princely swag for my likings. But, very good sessions. Very, very good sessions. Congratulations. And hats off to you, Raga, especially. And Professor Vibhuti Patel, can you tell me which university you are from? Because I would be organizing such things and I want to connect with like-minded people. It's very difficult to get people to speak on such issues.
Thank you so much, Shireen. Thank you. You can email me. The News Minute covers South India, but we can figure something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
okay.
I first retired from SNDT, which is a state university, at the age of 60.
Of course, I know, ma'am. I was working with Symbiosis and Whistling Woods.
Correct.
Till I became jobless.
Yeah, and then I joined TISS under the re-employment program, and from there also I retired in June 2020 because I completed 65 years, and now currently I am a distinguished faculty for IMPRI and like organize several courses.
Excellent.
For the gender
I would
studies,
also,
basically.
as a women and gender rights, I go for keynotes and this thing because my jobless condition does not bother my colleagues there. I keep going for keynote speakers. So I would love to be part of IMPRI. I'm really impressed with the content.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So what I liked about Ragamalika ji's approach is first that in the mainstream also you create a space by constant dialogue and conversation, and just don't adhere to the cancel culture, and at the same time create your own alternative for public education. I think what you're doing in terms of a lot of insensitivity in language that we see, like for me also when I was a second generation feminism person, so the kind of language I was using was very different. And then when I was continuously hammered for 3 years while teaching the course doing gender by my students, that made me more and more serious about studying queer studies, and that was a really learning experience. And my daughter was also taking up their cases as a human rights lawyer, but it was I learned everything in last 4-5 years. Only knowing taking a political position of supporting every minority right, that's a very big platitude and all. But in a day-to-day lived experience, what my students were going through, what other people who were facing persecution, or the systems and structures in the educational organizations where they were not welcome and they did not create any entry or access at that time to fight for those causes, that I started doing in last 4-5 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would like to go next. First of all, Raga, thank you for this very interesting session. So many commonalities because like you, I'm a huge champion of inclusive language because I work in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion. My question for you is 2 questions. Perhaps they are questions / reflections, observations. One is that when it comes to mainstreaming inclusive language, what are the challenges, and how do you navigate them? Because I think there's this huge resistance, especially from mainstream media, in using sensitive, bias-free, non-discriminatory language. I say because I work in the space of suicide prevention and post-vention advocacy. And despite the WHO guidelines, despite us shouting hoarse that please be sensitive in your reporting, we find suicides headlined. We have pictures of the deceased. We have the methods the deceased chose to end their lives. And these are triggering by itself in persons who are vulnerable. So therefore, this is one challenge I've been, I know it takes a lot of effort. I know it takes tremendous patience. But then, and my next question is, in your opinion, what is the impact of the lived experience movement in India across different domains in changing and challenging the narrative?
Right. On your first question, right? Like, I think it has to be a combination of calling out and calling in, right? Because a lot of times the success that I've had is because I am a journalist and because I know the people in the industry. Also, I came out very late. So sometimes what happens is when you're young and marginalized and your identity is out there, people don't take you seriously. You don't progress in your career because the world is like sort of loaded against you. In my case, I was already sort of known in my field of work as an editor, as which is why people didn't like just associate me as with queerness or LGBTQ issues or whatever, right? Or that queer person in media, right? So in that sense, a lot of my network was made by that point with a lot of people who sort of grew in the industry along with me, right? So they may be in different organizations. So a lot of times, like, while it is important to call out on social media, uh, people take it to their egos quite a bit, and it doesn't really like work. And sometimes it might help to have those networks with somebody who may be much junior to the editor who has to take the final decision, but may be able to, like, get things changed inside the organization. So in that sense, I think it is a mix of calling in and calling out. And with I completely understand. Like, I'm very recently there was a crime reporter who put out a photo of a person who died by suicide. It was like really triggering. And yeah, I mean, I guess like when people do change is when best practices are shared, right? Like, so we've talked about how at TNM we don't report the method of suicide, that, we don't say commit suicide. We don't use insensitive language and stuff like that. We talk about it. And that has like two kinds of effects, right? Like one is like, oh, we also do it. Like, why are you talking about it? But, we're talking about it so that more people can possibly learn that, they can also do it. And with journalists, the thing is that unfortunately, this is a profession where everybody is like constantly under pressure, right? It's not like an extremely well-paying profession necessarily. It's a industry that has completely ignored human resources, right? So we don't necessarily have policies and processes in place like many other organized sectors. So I don't know if we should call ourselves an organized sector. So people are constantly under pressure, constantly under like, deadline pressure. And unless you are invested in something, right, it just like slips through. And I understand that. That's no excuse, of course, right? Like, for instance, even under pressure, nobody would say CPIM instead of CPI Maoist, right? Nobody would condone, like really funny stuff has gotten published and gotten on air, right? Um, X party shits blame instead of shifts blame because somebody is under pressure and like, has made a spelling mistake, but that's not condoned, right? Like you're not like going to say it's okay, right? But there is a lot that is like sort of fine, okay, you did it because you were under pressure, right? So there has to be that constant pressure from civil society, and there has to be also like, sort of that building of understanding and like sort of building allies or recognizing that calling in may help more than calling out sometimes, right? Because you don't hurt somebody's ego, or you're not like, blaming them when they're like going through like 20 different things. Maybe, making a phone call or like sort of sending a message saying, hey, I saw this. Great that you raised awareness on this issue, but, perhaps you could avoid this because ABC reason might help. And your
Thank you,
second
Rag.
question was,
Yeah,
sorry,
the lived experience.
I think
Move.
it matters to talk about lived experiences. I mean, like I said, we connect through stories, right? Like, if you don't believe another person to be a person, then you don't respect them, which is how, dehumanization happens, which is how you treat marginalized people like subhuman, right? I think telling stories relating to each other really matters. So in that sense, I think personal narratives are very important.
Thank you, Raga. I'd love to connect offline with you. Yes,
I've shared my email ID.
thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Shinoyji has raised their hands. If you could please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, Raga. So, like, I'll just quickly introduce myself again. I'm Shinoy. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm a transgender man working in the social impact sector. And so, this is kind of something uh, I think about all the time, like, especially working with grassroots communities, like, be it, coming especially from indigenous, local, queer identities that don't necessarily fall under the LGBTQ ambit. And, um, I have noticed this thing where there's no space in the media for, you know, queer people to be imperfect beings. Um, like where there are social ills and our own socio-political issues that we deal with within our own spaces due to the pressure of social systems itself, which force us to behave in ways which we hurt each other. And the issue being that we can't really is there even space to responsibly talk about that in the media today, considering like there is this need to hyper moralize marginalized groups, or else they are not deserving of our solidarity, and and this need to be the perfect uh, uh, you know uh, to use this word, the perfect victim or the perfect marginalized person, else we don't want to really dedicate our mind space to your existence. And I'm just trying to like understand if if there is a place in the media today to be imperfect beings and kind of create awareness that we have issues, and we are also meaningfully tackling them within our spaces. And if that space doesn't exist today, like how do we create it for ourselves, be it in the mainstream media?
Thank you for that question. And I think that's a very deep problem, right? Like with most marginalized communities, you're either like, you're such a bad person because you did this one thing, or, no matter what you do, because you are marginalized on certain axes, that means that I will never question you. So it's both ways, I think, extremely problematic and extremely it doesn't lead itself to meaningful conversation. So, I mean, is there space? I struggle with that question quite often, right? Like there are issues that I would like to talk about, or I would like to see talked about queer communities and identities. At the same time, who is the audience for that? Who am I having that conversation with, right? Like, am I having this conversation with the wider public, or is this a conversation I want to have within queer communities? And as Moulee said, like, we're not one community. There is no one queer community, right? Like we are multiple communities. Some of us may not be in any community in that sense, right? We're constituents, as he was saying. So, uh, in that sense, yeah, that's like frankly a question that I struggle with as well. But I guess we have to create those spaces. One great thing about the times that we live in is that media is not restricted to, in that sense, what is owned by the rich and powerful and politically, you know, powerful. Lost for words. But yeah, like, I think, yes, something that I'm wondering as well along with you. And we should have those spaces. We should have those spaces where we can talk about complications, where we can talk about intersections without necessarily reducing queer people to either like idols or to bad films, right? Like where are those spaces? I mean, and I think this is like for all of the participants who are necessarily not queer or are not like sort of engaged in these discussions to also think about, like, as you go through this course, just because somebody is queer doesn't make them the perfect human being. But just because a human being is flawed doesn't make them not a human being, right? So where do we have those conversations? Where do we have those intersections? And possibly you guys in this course can come up with a space like that, Shinoy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Uh, Raga, there's another question, the Q&A box. Would you want me to say it out?
Sure, please.
Yeah, it's posted as an anonymous attendee. It says, what are some advice or tips and tricks you would give to be able to best build awareness through writing media, especially on social media, both in terms of reporting as well as just information awareness? Would you suggest combining the two to build more impact?
Um, I think it's important to like sort of expand the spaces that we are in. to be more inclusive, right? Like, are we having conversations? Like everybody wants to be like a social reformer, but nobody wants to talk to their family, right? We all face this problem. I am not like pointing fingers at you, right? Nobody wants to like, call out their friends when they're saying something problematic or insensitive. So I would say that, find ways of doing that. Find ways of like, having conversation, which is really easier said than done, right? Because we are so fractured as a society that it's very difficult to have conversation on anything political, and everything is political in that sense, right? So how do we do that? How do we like have those conversations without alienating the people that we love or the people who love us, right? How do we have those difficult conversations without it being like, if you're taking like everybody's not a Twitter troll, right? Like it's not like, you said this to me and therefore our relationship is over, I'm going to block you. Can't do that in real life. So how do we, and it's difficult, it's very difficult, but how do we do, how do we sort of have those conversations? What are the tools that we have to do those things, right? Like how do we talk to our siblings or our friends, cousins about difficult subjects where you may not even have the perfect information, right, to place your stand. You feel strongly about something. Sometimes we feel very strongly about something. We don't know why it's right, but we know that it's right? So how do you then put that into words? How do you then make it understandable to another person, like where you're coming from, and still have like an open mind to understand where they're coming from and like sort of have that as a conversation, not as a shouting match, So I guess that would have, sort of thing for social media as well, right? Like, how do you have conversations with people if you do have like a connection with them and not just like, not trolls, right? I think trolls are best like blocked and moved on from. I don't believe in engagement with people who come at you in order to attack you, right? Like, I may be talking about Adani and Ambani having a lot of money and how that's bad, and suddenly there will be like, people coming in and saying, are you a man or a woman? Like, look at you, how can you speak? You're so ugly, which is ridiculous. And it's not a good faith conversation. There, I'm not going to engage, right? But in real life, nobody's going to say that to me. In real life, if I'm having conversation with a colleague or a friend or a acquaintance, those are not the ways in which those conversations happen. Nobody's going to say, look at you, you're so ugly, which is why you can't make this point, right? They're going to say, no, I don't agree with you because of so and so, whatever. It can get heated. But if you care about that person and that person cares about you and you care about that relationship, how do you have that conversation? That is something that we can think about.
Thank you so much for your answer. If there aren't any more questions, we can move on to the participant introductions. Before moving on to that, Raga, like amazing to have you. Thank you for your session.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to learning from you in further IMPRI events.
Thank you so much. I've shared my email ID in case anybody wants to reach out.
Right. Sanskriti ji has asked one question. Sanskriti ji, would you like to speak?
I think she answered, no? That.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to go on with their introductions?
I think Sanskriti's question is how long can you persist with a conversation with people who make it difficult?
That's your answer.
That's on you. Yeah, that's on you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. You are mind blowing.
Priyanka Bora ji, you can mute.
Yeah.
They're asking that they want to ask if you can share something on personal pronouns. Is there any space in the media itself for the discussion on the issue of impacts of addressing queer people with different pronouns? And is there any political engagement with the whole concept of discussing, addressing issues and pronouns effect?
Right. The Inclusive Newsrooms project is an attempt at, like, that's one of the things that we are talking about, right? Like, how do you use the right pronouns for people? Even questions like during the trainings that we have with journalists, we address things like when you have an anonymous source, which happens quite often in the media, right? You can use they instead of he or she, because a lot of times our public spaces are also filled with men. So if there is one single woman there and you use the pronoun she said for a source who wants to remain anonymous, you're pretty much going to identify them. So sort of how do you use gender neutral pronouns like they for everyday things, which we usually do, right? Like it's not that complicated. We do that like all the time. But when it comes to like LGBT issues, we just like somehow want to. So it does happen. Yeah.
There's another question. Okay, no, I think Sanskriti ji's questions were addressed. If there's not any more questions, we move on. But before that, again, thank you for your session, such an enriching and engaging session. And we look forward to having you again on IMPRI events. And to the participants, for your introduction, please switch on your videos and audios if possible. Briefly introduce yourself, tell us your name, the organization you are affiliated with, and the reason that you chose to do this course. Thank you. If anyone would like to go ahead.
Can we do it without the video on? Because I'm in the sweltering heat. I'm in a t-shirt and very bedraggled. Next time, maybe I can come on video. I'm Dr. Shireen Abbas. I have already spoken earlier, but I'm after 25 years in journalism, I left as the features editor of the Indian Express when the page 3 culture started seeping into our newsrooms also. And I started consultancy and switched to academics. Luckily at that same time, around 2008 when I left, UNICEF was coming out with a lot of consultancies. So I've done some wonderful consultancies on, women-centric projects that UNICEF was having, including, HIV/AIDS, at a time when no journalist was really ready in our belt to, and especially not a woman journalist, to travel with the teams and to document it. I realized that, there was this lovely, what we call is a research gap between, Professor Patel would know this, Vibhuti ma'am would know, the research gap, the big gap between, they do great work, but they can't write a good report. And we can write a good report. So I filled in that research gap and I stepped in and I started doing documentations as a consultant for various international NGOs. The most challenging being a 40-day non-stop 17-station coverage of the journey of the Red Ribbon Express, on which I'm planning to write a book on HIV/AIDS and the stories that we had collected. It was brilliant. It was the most brilliant. And then, of course, children went off to study in Bombay at Xavier's and as an audio engineer at SAE Bhavan's college campus, I think it was. So worked as a visiting professor faculty with Symbiosis, with Whistling Woods, with EMDI, lots of places. Came back and was immediately absorbed as dean of a media college and started working, set up the whole media college. But somewhere, and of course, I was told that you have to do your PhD also. Just being a journalist for 25 years and having won the Achieving Scholarship and being the first person in the state to get it is not going to help. So I joined my PhD, and it's I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not blowing my own trumpet, which I think I am, but I think I should, because I'm the only person, journalist and academician with a PhD in social and behavioral change communication through mobiles. So did that, and now I'm into academics and consultancy. And I just loved, I did my MA in Women and Gender Studies after my PhD to understand a lot that was wrong with my own marriage. And finally, I'm now known as a women and gender studies expert, especially women in Islam, because there are a lot of misconceptions and misperceptions being spread, which is not true. So I work on in those areas, and I found this by fluke, and I said, let me just try what it is. And to be honest, I'm being very, very honest here. I was thinking of just begging out if I found it one of those typical, you know, kind of conferences or sessions where, you know, people come, blab, and go away. But I really love the content. And in the middle of the conference only, I went and completed my payment. I want to stay here throughout June. And I want to be not just, you know, a participant, but also give my own services if you need, you know, in women and gender or media and mass communication, if you organize things on that. Because I think I mean, this is a platform where I could offer a lot and I could learn a lot also. I'm an inveterate learner, and I love learning, and I have learned a lot today. Learned a lot about things thanks to the participants. Thank you, IMPRI, and thank you, Professor Vibhuti Patel, for being such a nice moderator.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen ji. If Shreya Pandey ji, if you could go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So you already know my name. My name is Shreya. I'm Dr. Shreya Pandey. My designation, well, I'm an assistant professor at St. Xavier's College, Ranchi. I have done my MA, MPhil, PhD from JNU, and specialized in European studies. Why did I? And my location is Ranchi. I belong to Ranchi, Jharkhand. I'm stationed there. And why did I choose this summer school? Because I have a tendency to tenaciously tilt towards things that are problematic. I always tend to identify the elephant in the room, and somehow I am thinking of writing on gender and writing on LGBTQ. I've heard a lot of seminars, conferences on this, but somehow I feel that they do not really, they talk about difficult conversations happening, but they never go to the matter. I mean, they do not deal with the real content. So my hope would be that I learn more and I have more clarity, and maybe I can engage with people here, maybe write something, do some research, do some serious work, and make a meaningful contribution in this domain. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Santana ji, if you could go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Astaba. Thank you for organizing this. My name, of course, you know, Santana. I am an assistant professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. And for the reason why I joined this course, I also saw it shared by someone on Instagram very recently, of course, just 2 days back. And I'm currently on my summer break, so I thought this is a good thing to be in. And since I also teach and supervise research, and there's a lot of interest in LGBTQ research these days, so I thought I'd be able to learn. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Priyanka Bora ji, if you could go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Priyanka Bora. I'm a student of English literature at Assam Women's University. Actually, I'm a research scholar, and now currently I'm engaging in research on the issues of queer itself. So, while scrolling down the Instagram last month, I just saw that there is going to be a cohort like Beyond Boundaries. Then I thought that I should attend this. So I was asking for some help from you guys, and I'm feeling very good now that it is such a very enriching discussion which is going on today, and I'm feeling elated that I'm at least able to attend this session and listen to this. Thank you.
Participate also.
Thank you so much. Gohil ji, you had raised your hand. If you could go ahead, please.
Yeah, there I am. Thank you so much for giving me the time. And this is Gohar Pirzada. I told earlier as well. I belong to Lahore. I'm in Pakistan, and I'm a trainer, basically a teacher at a university level. I did my master's from Pakistan first, then I studied in the UK and in Australia later. Currently, I'm working on my PhD, and the major themes that we're discussing currently are in the marginalized communities in the South Asian context, precisely Pakistan, but obviously there are a lot of similarities between India and Pakistan at a social level. So we're looking at marginalized communities that include minorities, for instance, or women at large, than in the rural areas, and the transgender people as well. So this post of the course, I just saw that I think in the last week, and I thought that it may be helpful in getting more of the social side of India, and how are you coordinating and actually dealing with the issue. And I would agree with one of the participants who came earlier, because typically I've also joined a lot of online courses and webinars, and they typically the whole idea is to just gain more sympathy and just just beating the drum with no logical reasoning or rational, and the solution of the problem is not there. Which I am very impressed with the content of your course so far, because it has been an absolutely fun attending, listening to all the participants, your panelists, and some of the participants as well. I'm deeply moved by the work of Dr. Shiri Abbas, for instance. Great, I think, content she presented in her role, and others as well. So I am very, very positive and looking forward to attend the other sessions as well. Thank you so much.
Gohar Saab, thank you so much. अस्सलाम वालेकुम from लखनऊ. उर्दू एक कनेक्ट है जो हम लोग शेयर करते हैं, और मैंने लाहौर पाकिस्तान में भी प्रेजेंट किया था अपनी कीनोट एड्रेस जेंडर कॉन्फ्रेंस में. Can I have your email, please? Sorry to butt in. This is Dr. Shireen Abbas.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. I'll just put it in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Am I
Please.
audible? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So hello, I'm Rimashri. My pronouns are she and her. I have currently submitted my PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and I have been awarded my degree on Feb. My research was on thank you so much. So my research was on LGBTQ rights, like the discourses and laws on LGBTQ rights. I did a comparative study on India and Russia. So yeah, I'm very much liking the cohort, and profound gratitude and appreciation to the entire team of IMPRI. I am looking forward to learn more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rimashri ji. Would anyone want to go ahead? Devika ji. In the meanwhile, Kanishk ji, if you could go ahead, please.
Hello, am I
Hi.
audible?
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Kanishkala. My pronouns are they and them. I'm a clinical psychologist and just recently graduated, completed my MPhil. So why I joined this course was because most of the knowledge and discourses that I have been exposed to have been in the area of mental health, dealing with queer clients, understand their stories, and some aspect of sociology, social aspects, and legal aspects do come in. But a platform where different areas collaborate, and there's intersectionality of different aspects, legality, journalism, politics. That is something that I was looking forward to, that when I went through the courses outline that I felt attracted to, which is why I joined this course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Devika ji has posted her introduction. She's Dr. Devika, Assistant Professor at Kumar Guru College of Liberal Arts and Science, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. Her area of research are gender studies and development communication. Rohini Kadam ji has also posted. She's from CORO India in Mumbai. Yeah. Anyone else who would like to go ahead, please?
Coro team, you are eight members.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah. So maybe.
Ma'am,
go ahead.
show me this side.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have done my master's from Calcutta University. and currently I am preparing for UGC NET. And in future, I have a plan to do research on the topic queer theory. So this was a very enriching session, and thank you all for this initiative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Swati ji, if you could go ahead. Anupriya ji.
Hi, good evening. So I am a doctoral fellow at Indian Council for Social Science Research, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD on the topic of social and legal exclusion of LGBTQ community. And this is the second time I am just taking up a course at IMPRI. So basically, I joined this course because learning from the experts in itself is a very valuable experience, and I could just take away a lot for like it would be a great learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Supriya ji, if you could go ahead.
Sure. This was fantastic start of the day. I'm Supriya from Koro, and we are 8 of us as a team from Koro. We have joined this course. Koro stands for Committee of Resource Organization. We work basically around building grassroots leadership in Maharashtra and Rajasthan, and gender has been core to everything that we do at Koro. So I basically wanted to be part of this course because as an activist, it is very much necessary to know what is happening around and through narratives. So it is basically to enhance our knowledge and also to know the things that are happening, to connect with the people who are working in these arenas, because we work with marginalized communities, and now we are also started working with trans and the other community. So it is, first of all, when we say that we work with people, we should know about them, about the community. Then only it will help us to be a better ally. So I would say in one sentence, if I want to be a better ally to LGBTQI community, and that's the reason why I'm part of this course. So thank you, Vibhuti ji. Thank you, IMPRI, for organizing this, and very much looking forward for next few sessions.
Can we see you? Okay. Your video.
Actually, my Zoom is unable to detect a camera.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, in the next session.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Supriya ji. Malvika ji, if you could go ahead, please.
Hi, hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Dr. Malavika. I just recently got my PhD in mass communication from Central University of Tamil Nadu, and I did my thesis in the area of gender and media. So naturally, I'm very much interested in this field, right? So when I got to know about this course, I was very excited, and I wanted to explore the field more, and I plan on doing more research in the field. So I thought this will be very helpful, and I was very right, because the initial session it was very helpful, and I was very impressed, and I got to learn a lot. So thank you for that. And currently I've just joined Kumaraguru College of Liberal Arts and Science, Coimbatore. So I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Visual Communication. So as I'm a teacher now, I want to understand this more, because I want to help out my students to research in it and be more responsible as a teacher. So I feel like this would help me a lot. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Sanskriti ji, if you could go ahead.
Hello everyone. So my name is Sanskriti. I study at NID Ahmedabad. I'm doing a bachelor in industrial design. But on the side, I'm always building awareness and writing about all things related to the LGBTQ community, especially since I came out 5 years ago. And yeah, I just love learning about other people's perspectives and different stories to help with that. I think that adds merit to your writing, especially. Yeah, thank you and happy Pride Month, everyone.
Yeah. Mr. Nitin Kamble. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, good evening to everyone.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah. Myself, Nitin Kamble. I am associated with Koro. It's a location for Mumbai, Chembur. And I'm working with organization last 20 years, especially I joined this course to understand the binaries of LGBTQ, and this will really help to us in our work because we are now thinking different kind of minorities group and especially work with the minorities and marginalized communities. So this is a really helpful and it is given a good clarity to us for working in our field. Thanks a lot and a really good content for today's workshop. Thank you.
Mumtaz, she has posted, she has been associated with Coro India for the last 22 years, and she works with nomadic groups and elected members of Gram Panchayats in Maharashtra. She wanted to join this course because it helps increase gender awareness and allows them to meet new people. And Shruti ji has posted, she's from Jawaharlal Nehru University and a PhD student in Chinese languages. Their professor shared regarding the summer program and they joined this course because they wanted to broaden their horizon of knowledge and also connect with and listen to enlightening lectures. And they are grateful to IMPRI and Vibhuti ma'am for organizing this program. Rahul ji has also posted. They are also from Coro India and based in Mumbai, and they've done their MBA and currently leading leadership development vertical as lead LDP. And they are here for this course mainly to understand the LGBTQIA constituency, as at Coro working with the marginalized communities and also with the LGBTQIA. Anyone else who would like to go ahead? Shilpa ji?
Shilpa ji has posted in Zoom chat.
Yeah. They are pursuing their PhD in sociology from Bharatiya University at Coimbatore, and their research is on trans men. And they are also working as volunteer in distinct organization with the community for 5 years. And they are really excited for the sessions. And Kankana Devi ji has also posted, and they are a research scholar who's from Assam, and they've joined this course because of their interest and look forward to the sessions. Vibhuti ma'am, I don't think there's any more introductions left. If they're left, we can take them up in the successive sessions.
Fine.
We could move on to the formal vote of thanks with your permission.
Yeah, now I think I'll just give my concluding remarks. So I think all three experts today, Moulee ji, Prince Raghavendra ji and Ragamalika ji, they set the tone and they have laid out an overarching and profound concerns of the queer community. And their conversations have been extremely crucial for the perspective building, because the very first session, I think the first impression is the last impression. So today we started with a big bang, and the kickstarting has been very, very exciting. And this insightful and analytically rigorous presentations followed by lively discussion showed how sexuality is an important part of human beings. To be human also means, above all, to have sexuality, i.e. sexual identity, desire, expression, experiments, and rights of people. Human sexuality also signifies human potential to channelize sexuality into empathy, love, care, concern, mutual respect, and equality. Although sexuality's importance in life is huge, we notice great control over human sexuality, and in different locations and different historical stage, people's sexual identities have been selectively privileged or marginalized. Their sexual desires are policed and punished. Sexual expressions are socially sanctioned, legally codified. Experiments are culturally expressed as well as relegated to taboos. Speech about sex or sexuality is censored, suppressed, leading to more psychological trauma, emotional distress, and blocking the way to harmonious and equal sexual relationships. I think many of you must have been familiar with Foucault's writing, where his book, History of Sexuality, which has had a massive ripple effects in the 20th century, and also in the 21st century now also, Foucault's writings have been extremely important in understanding the history of sexuality and how the control over sexuality led into various forms of human misery. Hence, it is important to discuss people's relation with sexuality in a safe space. Non-threatening ecosystem is a basic requirement to initiate engagement with the inner and outer conflicts related to sexuality, to initiate gender sensitization on issues of sexuality, sexual rights, and equality through sexuality, for creating loving spaces in which people of all genders and sexual identities can flourish. I think with this noble goal, IMPRI has kickstarted today's course, and I'm really happy that today we all bonded so well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your remarks. I would like to propose the formal vote of thanks.
Please go ahead.
As we come to an end of day 1 of the Beyond Binaries Cohort 2, an online international summer school program, a 1-month immersive online certificate training course, I, Astaba Jadeja, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose a formal vote of thanks on the behalf of IMPRI New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 1 sessions, C. Moulee ji, Prince Manvinder Singh Gohil ji, Ragamalika, Karthikeyan ji, for taking out their valuable time and allowing us to learn from this online certificate program. And we thank our chair, Professor Vibhuti Patel ji, for convening all the sessions. We also thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you on next Sunday, June 9th, for our day 2 of the certificate course. And we are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcast channels or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future IMPRI events, hashtag Web Policy Talk and hashtag Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you everyone for joining.